Chapter 632. The land god's voice reverberated throughout the entire godless continent. His voice could be heard in any small world or even in the chaos. He must kill Jiangchen. Of course, Jiangchen heard her. He felt bitter, but he also felt helpless. He knew very well that he could no longer avoid the battle today. However, with his current cultivation, no matter how strong his combat power was, it was difficult for him to compete with the land god. One had to know that the so-called land gods were actually true gods. It was just that he had not ascended. Other abilities were no different from those of a real god. That was the difference between a god and a mortal. It was a ravine that could not be crossed. You didn't stop in the bloody path, and you still won't stop in the godless continent? Don't underestimate this world. Just as Jiangchen was about to appear, an illusory but extremely domineering and demonic voice sounded. Then, the illusory images of small worlds appeared one after another. They were connected together like a path. That was the projection of the bloody path. At the same time, a stalwart man walked out of the bloody path. Demonic chi surged on his body. He was wearing a black robe with purple and gold patterns and holding a black sword dripping with blood. He had an unruly smile on his face, and his eyes were emitting demonic light. Demonic chi circled around him like black dragons. Jiu Yuan! Demon god Jiu Yuan? Has he come out? At this moment, many people exclaimed. Even Jiangchen was moved. Jiangchen did not know who Jiu Yuan was, but he knew that the owner of the land of the fallen in the bloody path was called Jiu Yuan. Moreover, his aura was similar to Jiu Yuan's. As for ancient creatures like Mu Yud, Daoist Tongtian, and the human emperor, they recognized the other party's identity at a glance. This was a prehistoric demon whose hands were once stained with blood. Even the sky was dyed red. During the Apocalypse War, the Nine Abyss slaughtered countless living beings single-handedly and pacified one side. Although he was a demon, he was also righteous. Impossible! Jiu Yuan? You can't come out! At this moment, the land god of the Holy Clan exclaimed. He knew how terrifying that battle was. Even the sky was bleeding. In that battle, although Jiu Yuan had pacified one side, he was seriously injured and had been sleeping in the land of the fallen. According to Jiu Yuan's injuries, it was impossible for him to come out in this life. Basically, he would be sleeping until he died. But now, the world calls me the demon god, but I don't like that title, Jiu Yuan said softly. I prefer the title Demon Lord. Demon Lord? The Lord of all demons. He wants to be the one with the most authority. Some people were moved. It had to be said that Nine Abyss was truly ambitious. However, no one dared to doubt Jiu Yuan's words. Back then, if the Nine Abyss hadn't been severely injured in the Doomsday War, all the demons in the world would have to respect him as their master. It was a pity that although the Nine Abyss had reappeared, it was no longer in its peak state. At most, it could only be considered as a land deity. Be quiet. Give the younger generation some time to grow. Jiu Yuan didn't make a move. He looked at the land god of the Holy Clan and sighed. You know that the Eternal City can't hold on. If the Eternal City is destroyed, the godless continent will be destroyed sooner or later. Why are you in such a hurry? What does my existence have to do with the Eternal City? If the Eternal City is destroyed, the godless continent will also be destroyed. If the Eternal City is still here, the godless continent will also be destroyed as long as I open the door of darkness. The land god of the Holy Clan said coldly. What's more, I'm not afraid of you now. If you insist, then I can only make a move, Jiu Yuan said softly. But you have to think about the price and consequences. Are you forcing me? The land god of the Holy Clan had an ugly expression. He knew the consequences of fighting with Jiu Yuan. At that time, the two of them would fight to the death. Even if the land god won in the end, he would most likely be seriously injured. At that time, Jiangchen and the others might really be able to kill him. Give the younger generation some time? Okay, then tell me, How much time do you want? At this moment, the land god of the Holy Clan gave in, but he couldn't give in too much. It was because he knew that with the talent of Jiangchen and the others, if they were given enough time, they might really be able to surpass him. At that time, he would definitely die. Not much time, 3 years. Zhou Yuan said. The higher the cultivation, the harder it is to improve. In 3 years, are you still worried that a land god will appear on the godless continent? 3 years? The land god of the Holy Clan whispered. In 3 years, even a demigod can't become a land god. What's more, the world has changed. No one can become a land god. That's right. Zhou Yuan smiled and said, Okay, you and I have known each other for a long time. Let's catch up for 3 months. At that time, you can return to the godless continent. At that time, I won't care what you do. How about it? As soon as he said this, the land god didn't hesitate at all and said, Are you sure? If so, that's great. Of course I'm sure. My name has always been like this. Zhou Yuan nodded. Then, Zhou Yuan left, and so did the land god of the Holy Clan. They didn't stay on the godless continent, but entered the Bloody Road's fallen land. It's over? Over? 3 years later, it will be time to decide the fate of the godless continent. Some people were happy, thinking that the godless continent had escaped a calamity. But more people knew that if no one in the godless continent became a land god in 3 years, then the godless continent would be completely finished. Just like today, if not for Zhou Yuan's appearance, the godless continent would have been destroyed today. But there was only one Zhou Yuan in the world. He could protect the godless continent once, but he couldn't protect it a second time. Moreover, many people guessed that there was something wrong with Zhou Yuan's condition. Otherwise, with his character, he would have taken action long ago. That's it for now. Jiang Chun breathed a sigh of relief, but his heart was still depressed. 3 years was too short. He was only at the Davis decay stage, vaguely touching the cultivation of a demigod. Occasionally, he could even stand in the demigod realm. But this wasn't stable. To be precise, the current Jiang Chun was still between the Davis decay stage and the demigod realm. Even if he reached the demigod realm, he still needed to continue cultivating, step above the demigod realm, and then become a land god. 30 years! I was wrong just now! Suddenly, someone heard Zhou Yuan's angry roar from the void. Not long after, the land god of the Holy Clan's voice was heard again. You think a land god can appear in 30 years? Don't worry, I'll just watch. So what if it's 30 years? Because of the current environment, no one can become a land god. Chapter 633. Was 30 years a long time? To a mortal, 30 years was indeed a long time. However, to a cultivator, 30 years was as short as a snap of a finger. The current environment was different from the past. No matter how talented an ordinary person was, they could only cultivate until Heavenly Decay 5. It was impossible for them to become a demigod, let alone a demigod or even a land god. That was why the land god of the sacred clan was so fearless. He was sure that in this era, no one could become a land god. The great path has recovered. This is a truly glorious moment. One day after a year, an auspicious sign appeared in the sky. The clouds were like rainbows, and the great path turned into stars, lighting up the entire sky. This was the true beginning of a great era. Everyone was excited. They wanted to fight for the world and achieve something in this great era. There were even people who rebuilt their sects within a year and continued to expand their forces, wanting to create a hegemony. In a year, many people had even forgotten about the 30 years promise. Almost everyone was cultivating, working hard, and fighting for hegemony. Only in the barren state, where the mountain gate had been rebuilt, was quiet and peaceful. In a year, Jiang Chun and the others had rebuilt the Qianzuan sect. Now, the sect was thriving, just like when the Qianzuan sect was at its peak. The Nayland family, the Jiang family, and White Emperor City had all joined the Qianzuan sect. Nayland Mayor, the head of the Nalan family, the new head of the Jiang family, and Emperor Bai and the others were on equal footing with Jiangqin. Now, the Qianzuan sect was divided into 4 groups, led by Jiangqin. However, the Qianzuan sect did not interfere with anything in the outside world. Even if there were new sects in the barren state that wanted to unify the barren state, the Qianzuan sect did not interfere. At the same time, there was a top sect in the former Shongzhou. They had built their own dynasty and called themselves the Sanctuary Dynasty. Lin Lang Wentian had built a thatched hut at the former location of the Martial Pavilion. Although the Martial Pavilion had not been rebuilt, there were still many experts who had joined her. In general, the current godless continent was thriving. Various geniuses had appeared, and experts were as common as clouds. Sects, families, and forces were emerging like bamboo shoots after spring thunder. Boss is still in seclusion. It has been more than a year, right? Why don't you come out to see your sisters-in-law? In the Qianzuan sect, Jianglu stood in front of a cave with Mu Yude beside him. Don't talk nonsense. Mu Yude patted Jianglu on the shoulder and said, Don't call her sister-in-law. If his disciples heard this, they would start fighting for the title again. Oh. Yes. Jianglu hurriedly covered his mouth. A trace of fear flashed in his eyes. One had to know that until now, Bai Fingyu, Nalan Mayer, and Hualiani were still fighting over who would be the main wife. But Jiangqin had been in close seclusion all along and never came out. Even Nian Chang'e had disappeared. No one knew where she had gone. Right now, the ones in charge of the sect were none other than Jiangqin's 3 disciples. Do you think Boss can break through to the land god realm within 30 years? Jianglu asked curiously. The gods of the land were too far away for him. I don't know. Mu Yude shook his head. 30 years is too short. I hope Boss can do it. Jianglu sighed. Jianglu glanced at Mu Yude and asked doubtfully, What's wrong with you? I feel like you have lost a lot of blood essence. I gave it away. Mu Yude said. I apologized to them and gave away the ancient bloodline that I had obtained with great difficulty. Oh? Ancient bloodline? What's the use of it? Jianglu asked. With the ancient bloodline, you can become a land god in this era. Mu Yude said. Mu Yude said, People like you, born in this era, are destined not to become gods of the land. Unless you have the ancient bloodline inheritance, otherwise, don't even think about it. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a fluctuation in the cave, followed by Jiang Chen's voice. Whoever in the sect has reached heavenly decay stage 5, hurry up and prepare to transcend the tribulation to become a god. Hearing this, Jianglu and Mu Yude were both stunned. What did that mean? Boss, Wakako and I have been able to transcend the tribulation for a long time. Jianglu said. We were waiting for you. No need to wait. Jiangqin didn't come out and said, The scenery in the 9th heaven divine world is very good. Go and take a look. Boss. What do you mean? Jianglu was stunned and said, 30 years later, we still have to fight the land gods with you. No need, I alone am enough. Jiangqin said. Jianglu was simple and honest, so he naturally believed in Jiangqin's words. But Mu Yude, who had lived for several eras, understood the meaning of his words. Jiangqin had been in seclusion for a year, and now he suddenly asked everyone to transcend the tribulation and leave the godless continent. What did this mean? It meant that Jiangqin was worried that the godless continent would be destroyed in 30 years. It also meant that Jiangqin knew that he couldn't become a land god in 30 years. He's your boss, just listen to him. Mu Yude patted Jianglu's shoulder and said, Your boss won't lie to you. That's right, boss is so powerful, the land gods of the sacred clan are nothing. Jianglu smiled and said, To be honest, I also want to go to the 9th heaven divine world, but I don't know if I can transcend the tribulation. I'm afraid even the tribulation can't hurt you. Mu Yude's expression was very strange. It was because Jianglu's saint body was too strong. His body could almost compete with the god physique. With this level of physique, even the tribulation couldn't hurt him. For Jianglu, transcending the tribulation was no different from taking a bath. Of course, there was another person who was in the same situation as Jianglu, and that was Wakako, who had the heavenly tyrant body. This guy was extremely arrogant, but he was also very strong. If he wasn't waiting for Jiangchen, Wakako would be able to ascend within this year. The only thing that worried him was Wutong and Shaoqingyi, this pair of enemies. One came out of the tomb and was naturally tainted with Yin Qi, which was the opposite of the lightning from the tribulation. One was Yin, and the other was Yang. If Wutong transcended the tribulation, she would be in trouble. There was also Shaoqingyi. He was a necromancer and dealt with corpses and ghosts all year round, so his body was also tainted with Yin Qi. It would be quite difficult for these two to transcend the tribulation. As for the others, it was easy to deal with. Call everyone here. Mu Yuda's expression was very normal. He couldn't tell others what he had guessed. Similarly, Jiangchen had already sent a voice transmission to Mu Yuda, telling him not to say anything. Half a day later, all the 5 decay of heaven people in the Chuanzuan sect were gathered together and told Jiangchen's words. Chapter 634. Boss, are you going to fight that god alone? Wakako frowned and said reluctantly. I don't want to leave. Yes, we are all waiting for boss to come out. Many people spoke one after another, not wanting to leave just like that. Muyud was helpless about this. He could only send a voice transmission to Jiangchen and let him say it himself. After a short while, one of Jiangchen's clones appeared in front of the crowd and ordered them to ascend to the sky. At this moment, no one had any objections. Even Bai Fingyu and the others obediently agreed. Because, under normal circumstances, Jiangchen would never speak to them with such an attitude. In Jiangchen's heart, these people were the most important people in this world. They were not subordinates, not servants, but brothers. Jiangchen and the others also knew about Jiangchen's character. Once Jiangchen spoke in such a tone, it meant that they could not resist. Although some people were puzzled, no one asked. When you go to the 9th heaven divine world, keep a low profile. I have a lot of enemies there. Don't expose your identity. Find a small sect, conceal your identity, and cultivate well, Jiangchen said. After saying that, he took out many god-level cultivation techniques so that these people would not have no cultivation techniques to cultivate after ascending. In the end, Jiangchen's clone dispersed. Everyone looked at each other and did not say anything. But half a day later, Wakako came to Jiangchen's cave and said, Are you not confident? What do you mean by not confident? Jiangchen replied. You are not confident that you can defeat that god, so you deliberately let us ascend and leave this place, right? Wakako asked. You are thinking too much. There is no creature in this world that I can't defeat, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. You are domineering, arrogant, and smart, but sometimes you still have to pretend to be stupid. You can also ascend and become a god now, Wakako said in a deep voice. He did not understand. With Jiangchen's cultivation, it was sufficient for him to transcend the divine tribulation. As long as Jiangchen was willing, the divine tribulation would immediately descend. As long as he passed the divine tribulation, Jiangchen would be able to ascend to godhood. At that time, what did this godless continent become like have to do with Jiangchen? I'll stay, Jiangchen said softly. There are some things that I have to do. Just for the godless continent? Wakako said snappily. When you were chased by so many people and forced to a dead end by the martial pavilion, how many of the creatures on the godless continent helped you? Now, for the sake of those people, you want to stay? You want to die? At this moment, there was no more sound coming from the cave. Jiangchen didn't seem to want to pay attention to Wakako and continued to cultivate. After half an incense stick of time, Jiangchen's voice rang out. Someone should come out and take care of this world. Then why does it have to be you? Wakako asked. Because I have to be that person, Jiangchen said. When Wakako heard this, he immediately fell silent. He suddenly understood why Jiangchen wanted to stay. Just as Jiangchen said, he wanted to stay. This was the reason, but it wasn't the reason. It was because, in his heart, this was the best. Then I'll ascend, do as you wish. Although Wakako understood in his heart, he still felt very uncomfortable. He was unhappy in his heart. He didn't have the same thoughts as Jiangchen. He only knew that when everyone in the world was forcing you, did you forget? Now you want to stay for the sake of everyone in the world? What an idiot! One more thing, what are you going to do with Linlang Wetian? Wakako asked. He's the same as me, still staying on the godless continent, Jiangchen said. It's just that we're enemies. Let him go. Wakako frowned. Why don't I go and kill him? No, this is my personal matter, Jiangchen said. Go and get ready to go through the tribulation as soon as possible. Wakako took a deep look at the cave and didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. Not long after Wakako left, Muyud also came. You're not confident, right? Muyud asked. The question he asked was the same as Wakako. If it were you, would you be confident? Jiangchen smiled bitterly. In front of the old fox Muyud, he didn't need to hide anything at all. He couldn't hide anything. If even Wakako could guess it, how could Muyud not know? Back then, when you and I were on the bloody path, we obtained the ancient bloodline inheritance. I gave that bloodline to Nianchanga. Now, he's nowhere to be found. Maybe he's in seclusion, Muyud said. If they're all gone, at least he'll be with you. I don't want anyone to accompany me. The road ahead is full of obstacles, and it's too dangerous. I don't mind dying alone, but if everyone around me dies, I won't be able to rest in peace. Jiangchen let out a long sigh. However, Jiangchen also knew that even if everyone left, Nianchanga wouldn't leave. That was because Nianchanga was the only one among so many people who could break through to the land deity realm like Jiangchen. However, there were only 29 years left. Who could break through to the realm of land god in such a short time? Jiangchen had been in seclusion for a year, but in this year, his cultivation had only increased a little. At this rate, Jiangchen could only reach the demigod realm in 30 years. He couldn't even reach the demigod realm. There's one more person. Keep an eye out for him for me, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. With your strength, you should be able to find Muyud, right? If you can't find him, ask Daoist Tongtian to help you. Oh? You care about him that much? Muyud was stunned. Then, he said with a relieved expression, You want to kill him? Yes, but not now, Jiangchen said. In the next 30 years, help me take care of him. Don't let him die. Ah? What's going on? Muyud was confused. Jiangchen and Mu Xingyun were sworn enemies. Everyone in the godless continent knew this. But now, Jiangchen was asking them to take care of Mu Xingyun. Was he serious? He saved my life on the bloody path, Jiangchen said softly. Muyud understood. He nodded and said, Okay. She won't die before you come out of seclusion. Then Muyud left. A day later, a figure quietly appeared outside the cave. The figure was hidden in a mist, but it was obvious that it was a woman. You're still as stupid as before, the woman said softly. Her voice was soft, but it gave people a feeling of dominance. Was there a hardness in her softness? Empress? Jiangchen was surprised. He didn't expect the Empress to come to him. What's the matter? I'm here to say goodbye, the Empress said. I should leave. This is not a place where I should stay. Where are you going? Jiangchen asked. You saved me, but you don't want to see me. Why? Because... The Empress frowned. After a while, she said mockingly, Because you're a hooligan. Chapter 635. Jiangchen was in secluded cultivation, and when he heard the Empress's words, he almost suffered a spiritual deviation. What's going on? How did I become a hooligan? I say, big sister, please make it clear. Don't slander me, Jiangchen said seriously. I do things in an upright manner. Upright? The Empress had a strange look on her face. She clearly remembered how hooligan Jiangchen was back then. When Jiangchen's name was mentioned, all of the realms in the universe would tremble. Especially those women. When they heard the name of Jiangqin in his first life, they would roll up their skirts and run. There are some things that you don't remember. The Empress sighed. I'm going to the ninth heaven divine world. It's time to take back my things. As for you, I believe you can survive. With your strength, why don't you go and deal with the land god of the Holy Clan? Jiangqin asked. Jiangqin could roughly guess how strong the Empress was. However, what was puzzling was that the Empress had not made a move since she was born. The only time she made a move was to save Jiangqin. She did not fight. However, the Empress had already left. She did not answer Jiangqin's question. Perhaps, the Empress had her own difficulties. Jiangqin was silent in the cave. He suddenly realized that there were many unknown things and people in this world. He pondered for a moment, and a question suddenly appeared in his mind. In this life, he was Jiangqin. Then, when he merged with the bodies of other lives, would he still be the current him? If not, then who was he? I believe in reincarnation, but I don't want to become another me. That kind of me is not me. Jiangqin sighed. Jiangqin did not know why he thought this way, but he had a feeling that perhaps one day in the future, he would have to make a very difficult decision. That decision might affect many things and even the myriad of worlds in the universe. What are you thinking about? Cultivate well. After a few breaths, Jiangqin sighed a few times, calmed down, and continued to cultivate. Time slowly passed, day by day, until 10 years later. In these 10 years, the godless continent was thriving. Everything was developing in the direction of prosperity. Top sects had sprung up in all of the major regions. In fact, in the past 10 years, 5 people had transcended the tribulation and become gods. And that didn't include Jianglu and the others. It could be said that the godless continent had reached its peak in this era. However, time would make an era progress, but it would also make people forget some things. Just like the land god of the sacred race, he was gradually forgotten by the people. Some sects even began to fight for territory on a large scale, destroying other sects and families in an attempt to unify the godless continent. This caused many people to feel extremely bitter. Could it be that they had forgotten the 30-year agreement? Now, what was the use of unifying the godless continent? 30 years later, when the land god of the Saint Clan returns, who in the world will be able to stop him? However, the world was like this, and so was the human heart. In the end, there were still a few people who were filled with ambition in this glorious and dark era. They didn't care about the future, they only cared about the present. Among them, the most radical were Lin Lang Wentian, the Jin family, the Supreme Sect, and the Heavenly Star Sect. In the past 10 years, the northern region of the godless continent was controlled by Lin Lang Wentian, the southern region was controlled by the Jin family, the western region was unified by the Supreme Sect, and the eastern region was dominated by the Heavenly Star Sect. However, the 4 forces fought for hegemony, snatched territory, and snatched cultivation resources, but they didn't make a move on the barren state. That was because the barren state had the Chuanzuan sect. What was the status of the Chuanzuan sect in the godless continent now? The barren state was so big that no one dared to touch it. Even the sects, families, and forces that were once established in the barren state had long migrated out. Now, in the entire barren state, there was only one sect, and that was the Chuanzuan sect. Of course, many people were wondering why Lin Lang Wentian didn't make a move on the Chuanzuan sect. It was because in the Chuanzuan sect, although Jianglu and the others had ascended in the past 10 years, there was still Mu Yud. Moreover, there was a rumor in the world that when Jianglu and the others ascended together, there was one person who didn't appear, and that person was Wakako. Some people guessed that Wakako had left the Chuanzuan sect, but he had never left the godless continent. However, with Wakako's personality, if anyone touched the Chuanzuan sect, his domineering aura would probably shatter the clouds. However, it was a little different today. Some people's ambitions had swelled to a critical point. On this day, outside the Chuanzuan sect, a middle-aged man came here with a few youths. They seemed very polite as they stood outside the mountain gate of the Qianzuan sect, waiting respectfully, and asked someone to go and report. However, ever since Jiangchen went into seclusion, the Qianzuan sect didn't care about worldly affairs and never received anyone. It was only sometimes that the Qianzuan sect recruited some disciples. Other than that, no outsiders had entered the Qianzuan sect all these years. Everyone, the sect leader is in seclusion. Now, the Qianzuan sect is not receiving anyone, please go back. At this moment, an old gatekeeper of the Qianzuan sect walked out. He cupped his hands and bowed, then signaled that they could go back. Once those words were spoken, the complexions of these people who had originally appeared very polite suddenly turned ice-cold. Especially the middle-aged man in the lead, he shouted angrily. What? Do you really think that the Qianzuan sect is the only big family? We are from the southern overlord, the Jin family. Today, we are here to visit the Qianzuan sect, and you dare to not let us in? Are you looking down on the Jin family? Fellow cultivator, I have already said it very clearly. The Qianzuan sect is not receiving anyone, and we don't want to interfere with anything in the world. The gatekeeper said softly and pointed inside the Qianzuan sect. Don't disturb the sect leader's seclusion. Everyone please go back. Since we are here today, we must go in and take a look, the man said in a deep voice. Otherwise the world will laugh at our Jin family. We are here to visit, but we can't even enter the door. Won't our Jin family lose a lot of face? Hearing this, the gatekeeper of the Qianzuan sect smiled bitterly and said, Then go in and take a look. Just don't cause any trouble. I am only at Heaven's Blight, and the disciples I brought have just entered the deity realm. What trouble can the few of us cause? The man smiled and said, I am Jin Qingqian. I think after today, you will remember my name. Oh. The gatekeeper whispered with a trace of loneliness in his eyes. I'm afraid the world doesn't know my name. After all, under the glory of the sect leader, we seem a bit dim. With that, the old man disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only one sentence. Don't cause trouble. Chapter 636. The current Qianzuan sect was a supreme existence in the eyes of the world, and everyone was afraid of it. Even Lin Langweitian did not dare to set foot in the barren state, let alone the Qianzuan sect. However, the few from the Jin clan were a little temperamental. Of course, in the eyes of the world, the Qianzuan sect was extremely glorious, and had risen in this great world. They even had Mu Yud, who was above the demigod realm. However, when Jin Qingqian and the others entered the Qianzuan sect, they found that the sect was a little desolate. Looking around, there were only a few scattered disciples cultivating in the huge square of the Qianzuan sect. There were even a few people sweeping the fallen leaves. This situation was similar to a dilapidated sect no matter how one looked at it. How did the Qianzuan sect become like this? Jin Qingqian frowned. This was not what he had imagined. He thought that the Qianzuan sect would be prosperous and full of people, and it would definitely look like a big sect. But now, there were less than 10 people in the square. Especially those disciples who were cultivating, their cultivation had not even reached the saint realm. The Qianzuan sect has declined. I'm afraid the title of the top sect in the barren state should be given up. Jin Qingqian whispered with a trace of contempt in his eyes. At the same time, he was also thinking whether he should report to the higher-ups of the Jin clan. Maybe they could send someone to destroy the Qianzuan sect. At that time, with the cultivation resources in the Qianzuan sect, the Jin clan was very likely to really unify the godless continent. Old thing, what are you talking about? When has the Qianzuan sect declined? At this moment, a young man who was cultivating stood up with a look of displeasure. Young people were naturally proud and arrogant. They could not listen to anything bad. In particular, the Qianzuan sect was now known as the top sect in the godless continent. Kid, watch your words. This is an elder of the Jin clan. Behind Jin Qingqian, a young man in the godly realm raised his eyebrows and looked at the Qianzuan sect disciple contemptuously. He said, At this age, you haven't even reached the saint realm. Are the disciples of the Qianzuan sect also useless? The young man from the Qianzuan sect opened his mouth. His face was red, and he looked very wrong. Beside him, someone tugged at the corner of his shirt and gave him a look. Everyone, you're our guests. Our Qianzuan sect respects you, but you shouldn't be impudent. Don't insult our Qianzuan sect! At that moment, the young man who was sweeping the floor glanced at Jin Qingqian and said, Although his cultivation is low, he has been cultivating since he was 20 years old. He is only 23 years old now. What? He only cultivated for 3 years, and his cultivation base is already at this level? In an instant, Jin Qingqian and the others were shocked. A few disciples even exclaimed. However, someone quickly retorted, How would we know how long he's been cultivating? We only know that Qianzuan is in decline. They don't even have a decent disciple. Ever since Jianglu and the others ascended, Qianzuan sect's strength has been greatly reduced. It is no longer the Qianzuan sect of the past. Another Jin family disciple sneered. Oh? A decent disciple? The youth who was sweeping the floor put the broom aside and stared at the Jin family disciple who had just spoken. He asked, What makes a decent disciple? What do you think of me as an outer sect disciple? How about I spar with you? What? An outer sect disciple? The Jin family disciple was stunned. Then, he laughed and said contemptuously, An outer sect disciple is not qualified to spar with me. Do you know that I am a direct disciple of the Jin family? My cultivation base is at the upper level of the immortal state. The youth who was sweeping the floor was quite embarrassed. His old face suddenly turned red, but he felt even more wronged in his heart. There was no other way. Although Qianzuan's sect had only recruited a few disciples, each of them was at the level of a peerless genius. A person like him who had ordinary aptitude could only be an outer sect disciple here, and he had to clean the place. Forget it. Today, we are not here to do anything. We just want to measure the strength of Qianzuan sect's disciples. Jin Qingqian waved his hand and said to the youth beside him, Since they want to spar with you, you just have to accept. But remember, don't go too hard on them. After all, Qianzuan sect is in decline now, but you have to leave them some face. Yes. The Jin family disciple nodded. Today, he came to Qianzuan sect to test the foundation of Qianzuan sect. Now, he would start with Qianzuan sect's disciples. Then, the two of them walked out and stared at each other for a while. Let's start. The Jin family disciple said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, a long sword appeared in his hand. With a slash of the sword, a cold light shone on this side of the world. Even the air was distorted, and the void showed signs of being cut into pieces. However, the Qianzuan sect's disciple who was sweeping the floor looked very calm. He gently stretched out his palm, and there seemed to be a burning furnace in his palm. Under the furnace, the sword light was burned out. Then, the furnace bombarded the Jin family disciple's body. Puff! With a muffled sound, the Jin family disciple flew out with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. He was almost killed on the spot. I am sorry. Since I joined Qianzuan sect, I have been sweeping the floor and have not fought. I did not know how to control my strength. The youth who was sweeping the floor was very embarrassed. You! How could you control your strength? The Jin family disciples shouted angrily. Only Jin Qingqian's face was gloomy. Just from the palm just now, Jin Qingqian could see that the Qianzuan sect's outer sect disciple who was sweeping the floor had reached the heaven's blight. What the F***ck? Are you kidding me? An outer sect disciple who was sweeping the floor had such a cultivation. Then, what about those inner sect disciples and true disciples? Wouldn't those people's cultivation be heaven-defying? You did it on purpose, right? At this moment, Jin Qingqian's face was very ugly. He stared at the youth who was sweeping the floor and said, You are clearly at the heaven's blight, but you relied on your cultivation to spar with my Jin family disciple. You even deliberately used such a heavy hand. What a Qianzuan sect! I have explained that I haven't fought in a long time. The disciple who was sweeping the floor explained. Then, his face turned serious and he said, "Besides, you were the one who spoke rudely first. I just stood out to save some face for Chuanzuan sect." "Ha! A mere sweeper, let me deal with him." At this moment, a slender youth walked out from behind Jin Qingqian. His facial features were good, his long hair fluttered, and he was dressed in a green robe. He looked like a banished immortal. Moreover, as he stood out, the aura on his body suddenly skyrocketed. His cultivation had reached the heavens' blight. "Hey, isn't this inappropriate?" The youth who was sweeping the floor was stunned. He frowned and said, "You just said that I was bullying others because of my cultivation advantage. Why is the Jin family like this now? You were the one who bullied others first." Jin Qingqian shouted angrily. He had already lost face, and now that this junior said that, he was also a little angry. Chapter 637. The youth who was sweeping the floor was immediately unhappy when he heard this. Even the youths who were cultivating in the square had ugly expressions on their faces. What was going on? Were they trying to bully the Chuanzuan sect? "Hey, senior brother who is wiping the wall, come here for a moment. There's a Heaven's Blight second stage cultivator looking for trouble." At this moment, the youth who was sweeping the floor shouted into the distance. Looking around, behind the square, in front of a small palace, there was a young man with a dusty face, holding a rag and wiping the bricks on the wall. After hearing this, he naturally wiped his face with the rag and cursed softly. "If I don't finish wiping this palace today, I'll be scolded again. Tian Sha's plaything is looking for trouble at this time? Are you here to disturb me wiping the wall?" With that, he stepped out with a dark face and teleported to the square. "Who is it? If you want to fight, hurry up," the youth who was wiping the wall said angrily. "Can't you see that I'm busy? I'm Jin." The disciple of the Jin family opened his mouth, but before he could finish speaking, he saw the youth who was wiping the wall punch him. With this punch, there were 6 balls of light floating around him, and a weak 6 paths power appeared. 6 paths of reincarnation fist? F***CK. The sect leader is so biased? He actually taught him the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. All the disciples of the Chuanzuan sect looked envious. Only the youth who was wiping the wall had an ugly expression. One had to know that he had been wiping the wall for 10 years in exchange for the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. According to Jiangqin, this was his salary. At this moment, a fist light burst out and turned into 6, directly sending the youth from the Jin family flying. After the punch, the youth who was wiping the wall said with a gloomy expression, "Don't bother me. I have to finish wiping the palace today. Otherwise, I'll be scolded." With that, he left angrily. This scene made the group of people speechless and ashamed. Especially for the people from the Jin family, this was simply a slap in the face. An outer sect disciple who was sweeping the floor was so strong, they had to admit it. However, even a wall scraper was this strong, and he even practiced the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Were all the disciples of the Zun sect like this? If there's nothing else, then leave. Our Chuanzuan sect doesn't have many disciples, the disciple who was sweeping the floor said. Also, the old man who was guarding the mountain gate told you not to mess around here. It's not good to disturb the hierarch. Humph. He hasn't come out for 10 years. Who knows if he's in seclusion or dead? Jin Qingqian raised his eyebrows. There are rumors in the outside world that Jiang Qin was seriously injured when he fought with the land god. That injury is nothing. Our sect leader's physique. The disciple who was sweeping the floor muttered. Then, he impatiently waved his hand and said, "Excuse me, I haven't finished sweeping this floor yet." "Are you chasing us away?" Jin Qingqian said coldly. He was a Deva 5th decay cultivator and an elder of the Jin family. Since he was here, how could he be chased away? Moreover, the two sides had sparred twice, and the Jin family had lost both times. If he left just like that, where would the Jin family's face go? Thinking of this, Jin Qingqian looked at the youth who was sweeping the floor and said, "You're only at Deva first decay, so I don't want to bully you. As for that person who's cleaning the wall, he's only at Deva second decay, so I don't want to bully him either. You can't bully him even if you want to." The disciple who was sweeping the floor curled his lips. God knew how deep the Qianzuan sect's foundation was. You want to bully us in our own territory? Hell, what nonsense are you talking about? Call your elder out. I'm here to seek guidance today, Jin Qingqian said. If his disciple couldn't do it, he could only do it himself. At the very least, if he could win a battle, he would have an explanation when he returned, and the Jin family wouldn't lose all their face. Elder? That's not good, right? The disciple who was sweeping the floor was in a difficult position. If the elder comes out, I'm afraid you'll die. You might not know, but the elders now have very bad tempers. The disciple who was sweeping the floor was telling the truth. However, when Jin Qingqian heard it, it sounded as if he was mocking him and looking down on him. At this moment, Jin Qingqian was enraged. He immediately threw a palm strike at the youth who was sweeping the floor. He felt that he needed to establish his authority. Otherwise, if a disciple who was sweeping the floor dared to be so arrogant in front of him, wouldn't he, an elder of the Jin family, lose face? F***ck. Are you bullying me? The disciple who was sweeping the floor shrieked and yelled at the top of his voice. Gatekeeper! Come quickly! Someone is bullying us! Boom! As soon as he said that, the old man who was guarding the mountain gate of the Qianzuan sect previously appeared. He waved his hand gently and blocked Jin Qingqian's palm strike. Then, his face darkened slightly and he said, Your Excellency, I've already told you not to cause trouble when you entered the Qianzuan sect. You're just a gatekeeper. Jin Qingqian shouted angrily. The anger in his heart had already made him lose his mind. He didn't even think about how an old gatekeeper was able to block his palm strike. Sigh, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have let you in. The old gatekeeper sighed and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Then, he pushed his hands out horizontally like the waves of the sea. Under his palms, the waves surged and directly pushed Jin Qingqian and the rest of the Jin family out of the mountain gate. F***ck. Gatekeeper, you're really powerful. No wonder the sect leader said to look for you if anything happens. The disciple who was sweeping the floor exclaimed. It was the first time he saw the old man in action. Old man! How dare you humiliate us? You're just a gatekeeper. If you have the guts, tell me your name. I'll look for you next time. Outside the mountain gate, Jin Qingqian was furious. The former Qianzuan sect leader is now a gatekeeper, a janitor, and a teacher, the old man said. Then, he waved his hand and said, Don't ask for my name. You won't know it anyway. You don't dare to say it. Jin Qingqian shouted angrily. Lu Qingqian. The old man smiled bitterly. He was Lu Qingqian from back then. Before Jiangqun was reincarnated, the position of Qianzuan sect leader belonged to him. However, ever since Jiangqun was reincarnated, Lu Qingqian had hidden his brilliance. Even now, no one remembered that the Qianzuan sect had a sect leader called Lu Qingqian. However, Lu Qingqian did not care. If he had not met Jiangqun, he would not have been able to step into the 5 decay of heavenly beings in his life. The reason why he stayed was to repay Jiangqun and protect the Qianzuan sect for Jiangqun until Jiangqun came out of seclusion. Let's destroy them halfway. If they return to the Jin family, they might really declare war on our Qianzuan sect. Although I'm not afraid, I don't want to disturb the sect leader. At this moment, Lu Qingqian said softly. There was no one beside him, but he knew that there was a person who rarely showed up but was always there. Chapter 638. There was one person who had been Jiangqun's servant since the beginning, a member of the devil sect. Once, Jiangqun had risked his life for him. From then on, the two of them were no longer servants, but brothers. Of course, Jiangqun had said something at that time. It doesn't matter if you're my servant or my brother. Since you're mine, your life and death should be under my control. Ever since then, that person had rarely shown himself. He was willing to become Jiang Chen's shadow and help Jiang Chen eliminate his enemies in the dark. Just like now, if he were to say his name, very few people on the godless continent would remember him. Sometimes, even Jiang Chen himself would forget him. And that person was Emo Xingtian. Kill them. If this matter can't be hidden and the Jin family finds out, what should we do? Emo Xingtian did not appear. Now that his concealment technique was superb, even Lu Qingqing did not know where he was. So what if they know? They've already come and acted atrociously. Lu Qingqing said softly. Go, I'm now the acting sect leader. I'm not listening to you, but I also feel that this is his sect. If someone dares to act atrociously in his sect, I won't let it go, Emo Xingtian said. Then Emo Xingtian fell silent. He should have set off. However, half a day later, Emo Xingtian returned. He found Lu Qingqing and told him that when he found Jin Xingqian and the others, they were already dead. Moreover, they had died miserably, as if someone had used something to forcefully smash them into pieces. The ground was filled with remains and minced meat. Who did it? Lu Qingqing was dumbfounded. Why would someone do such a thing? Now, the experts in the Qianzuan sect were basically in seclusion, and only he and Emo Xingtian were taking care of things. Now, why would someone suddenly help the Qianzuan sect? I'm not sure. He hid his aura, so I couldn't detect it. Emo Xingtian frowned, also puzzled. Could it be Wakako? When everyone ascended, he didn't seem to appear. Could he still be on the godless continent? Lu Qingqing asked. Emo Xingtian shook his head, indicating that it was not Wakako. This was all because Wakako was a conqueror. He had the heart of a conqueror. He had always been straightforward when doing things. If Wakako wanted to kill someone, he would do it directly. He would not hide his aura. Moreover, even if Wakako wanted to kill someone, he wouldn't be so cruel. Then who could it be? Lu Qingqing and Emo Xingtian were both dumbfounded. Could it be that someone in this world was helping the Qianzuan school and Jiang Chen secretly? The two of them discussed for a long time, but couldn't come up with an answer. In the end, they left helplessly. At the same time, in the main hall of the Jin family, the current head of the Jin family, Jin Yilu, sat upright in the main hall. His face was gloomy, and when his eyes opened and closed, it seemed like flames were about to shoot out. That was anger. The people that Jin Qingqian brought over were all killed on the way back? Do you know who did it? Jin Yilu said in a deep voice. How bold! You even dared to kill a member of my Jin family. Head, we've investigated. We can't find out who it is, but the Qianzuan sect is the most suspicious. An elder said. They came back from the Qianzuan sect. Only the people from the Qianzuan sect know the way back. The Qianzuan sect? Jin Yilu frowned. It shouldn't be. The Qianzuan sect isn't that stupid. The people were killed as soon as they came out from their place. They are the most suspicious. If I were the Qianzuan sect, I naturally wouldn't do that. Jin Yuliu's idea was indeed very reasonable, but he didn't know that the Qianzuan sect had indeed done that. It was just that Emo Xingtian was a step too late. Then who could it be? Another elder frowned. Jin Qingqian is the strongest of the Deva's Decay. Although he just stepped into the Deva's Decay not long ago, his combat strength is considered strong enough. If an ordinary person wants to kill him, they would have to cause a big commotion. And once a battle between the Deva's Decay starts, we will all notice it. At this point, the main hall suddenly fell silent. No one could figure out who it was that could kill Jin Qingqian without making a sound. Could it be a dark master? An assassin? Jin Yilu whispered. But now on the godless continent, how many decent assassins were there? Moreover, even if it was a celestial-level dark master, it would be impossible for him to silently kill an expert of the same level, right? At the very least, it would cause some commotion. Let's check it out first. Jin Yilu thought for a while, then said to the chief elder. The people were killed after coming out from the Chuanzuan sect. This can be used as an excuse. Go alone and test the strength of the Chuanzuan sect's experts. Okay. The chief elder of the Jin clan nodded, then asked tentatively. Are we going to war with the Chuanzuan sect? War? Ha, there's no hurry. Jin Yinlu smiled and said. The Chuanzuan sect is now unique and stands tall in the barren state, surpassing our main clans. There are many people who want to get rid of the Chuanzuan sect. We just need to do something, and we can get others to help us destroy the Chuanzuan sect. If it doesn't work, the Jin clan can join forces with others to make the Chuanzuan sect disappear completely. Jin Yinlu was very ambitious and shrewd. In fact, he had already thought of everything. However, he seemed to have forgotten that if the Chuanzuan sect was destroyed, who would stop the sacred clan's god when he returned 20 years later? After all, 10 years had already passed. However, if the Chuanzuan sect couldn't even stop the Jin clan, then 20 years later, there was no need to stop the sacred clan's god. What did you say? The people sent by the Jin clan to the Chuanzuan sect were all killed on the way back. At this moment, in the Western Supreme sect, a group of higher-ups were shocked. They were very puzzled. Why did the Jin clan send people to the Chuanzuan sect when the four clans were fighting for hegemony? Moreover, what did the death of the Jin clan have to do with the Chuanzuan sect? If it had nothing to do with the Chuanzuan sect, then who was secretly attacking the Jin clan? If the people were not killed by the Chuanzuan sect, then our Supreme sect, Martial Pavilion, and Sky Star sect are the most suspicious. Someone frowned and said, could it be that someone wants to frame us and cause us to go to war? Sect Master, who do you think did it? Someone asked. A cold light flashed in the eyes of a middle-aged man sitting in the main hall of the Supreme Combination faction. He said, no matter who did it, if this matter is blamed on my Supreme Combination faction, my Supreme Combination faction has nothing to fear. However, even so, none of the four major forces dared to be the first to make a move. Once the first to make a move, it was very likely that they would become the target of everyone. Send someone to the Chuanzuan sect. Say that you are going to visit the mountain and inquire about the news. The middle-aged man said, the Chuanzuan sect hasn't appeared in the world for a long time. We don't even know what their foundation is now. Let's find out the truth first. At the same time, in the Sky Star sect, a group of higher-ups were also gathered together. The topic of discussion was similar to that of the Supreme sect. Moreover, the Sky Star sect also decided to send someone to the Chuanzuan sect to inquire about the truth. On the other side, Lin Lang Wentian also knew about this matter. He didn't say anything, nor did he send his people to the Chuanzuan sect. He didn't seem to care about this, but the ambition in his eyes was not concealed at all. Chapter 639. Lin Lang Wentian's cultivation was already above that of a demigod. As long as he was willing, he could undergo the divine tribulation and ascend to godhood at any time. However, he did not want to do that. He had been cultivating in the godless continent for so many years. His only wish was to unify the godless continent. He wanted to create a glorious era that would be remembered by future generations. It could be said that this was also a kind of obsession of his. Otherwise, he could have just left. Why would he stay here to fight for hegemony? Interesting. This matter is getting out of hand, Lin Lang Wentian said softly. He narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance as if he could see the Chuanzuan sect in the barren state. Lin Lang Wentian knew very well that several major forces had gone to the Chuanzuan sect. There would definitely be a collision. However, as for what kind of collision it would be, it was hard to say. It could be a fight between each other, or it could be an alliance to deal with the Chuanzuan sect. No matter what the situation was, it was what Lin Lang Wentian was most happy to see. Pavilion Master, why don't you make a move? At this moment, one of Lin Lang Wentian's subordinates asked. He was very puzzled. With Lin Lang Wentian's cultivation, as long as he made a move, what could the other sects do? The power of a demigod was enough to sweep away everything. My injuries have not healed yet. Lin Lang Wentian sighed. Back then, when he fought with the sacred clan's land god, although he did not die, he was injured. Especially after he hid in the chaos, he was eroded by the power of chaos and half died. Now, he was still recuperating, but his injuries were almost healed. Moreover, in Lin Lang Wentian's heart, the other sects were nothing. The only one he was afraid of was the Qianzuan sect. Now, he could use this opportunity to let those sects test the current foundation and strength of the Qianzuan sect. If there was no expert in the Qianzuan sect, then even if his injuries had not healed, Lin Lang Wentian would decisively make a move and destroy the Qianzuan sect. Watch closely and see how the Qianzuan sect deals with this matter, Lin Lang Wentian said. Yes. His subordinate nodded, then tore through the void and left. Half a day later, outside the mountain gate of the Qianzuan sect, the experts of the three major sects, the Jin clan, and the Tianxing sect had arrived. This time, they did not bring a single disciple with them. All of the people who came were people with high cultivation. Jin clan? Supreme faction? Tianxing sect? At this moment, the people of the three sects exchanged glances with one another, somewhat surprised. They didn't expect that people from all three sects would come, and at the same time. This was rather interesting. I heard that the people of the Jin clan were killed. It seems like there are people in this world who are not afraid of the Jin clan. An elder of the Supreme Joint faction mocked. In my opinion, the Jin clan should just stay put obediently. There's no need for the Jin clan to get involved in the Godless Continent's overlord position. That makes sense. An elder from the Heavenly Star sect nodded in agreement. Then he looked at the people from the Supreme sect and said mockingly, However, I think the Supreme sect is similar to the Jin clan. What do you mean? The faces of the people from the Supreme Joint faction froze. A few of them even released their auras, looking like they were about to attack. Only the people from the Jin family didn't say anything. They just looked at the people from the two sects quietly. The great elder of the Jin clan has come to pay a visit. Several breaths later, Jin family's great elder was the first to speak, his voice loud and clear like thunder. Moreover, as he spoke, his aura erupted, and his cultivation reached the peak of the 5 decay of the celestial being. This kind of person could also transcend the divine tribulation. If he could transcend it, he could ascend to become a god. However, now that they were all fighting for the position of overlord, these people didn't want to leave just like that. They wanted to create glory on the godless continent, and let their names be passed down through the ages. The great elder of the Supreme Joint faction has come to pay a visit. The great elder of the Heavenly Star sect has come to pay a visit. Then, the two great elders of the Supreme Joint faction and the Heavenly Star sect also spoke one after another, and they revealed their auras. If you want to pay a visit, then pay a visit. Why are you showing off your aura? Are you trying to scare my Qianzuan sect? At this moment, Lu Qingqian walked out with a broom in his hand and said, If there's nothing else, please go back. The Qianzuan sect doesn't receive anyone. Don't hinder me from cleaning the mountain gate. Oh? The previous sect master of the Qianzuan sect, Lu Qingqian? The peak of the 5 decay of the celestial being? Someone recognized Lu Qingqian's identity and was quite surprised. This was because in the eyes of many people, with Lu Qingqian's talent, it was impossible for him to cultivate to the 5 decay of the celestial being. However, no one would know that as long as Jiang Chen was willing, he could make a person with no talent become a peerless genius. Letting Lu Qingqian cultivate to the 5 decay of the celestial being was a piece of cake for Jiang Chen. I really didn't expect that someone would recognize me. Lu Qingqian smiled bitterly and pointed inside the mountain gate. The sect master is in seclusion and won't see anyone. We're here today just to see the scenery of the Qianzuan sect. The great elder of the Supreme Joint faction said. Let's go in and take a look, okay? You're all here to pay a visit, why are you still so polite? The Heavenly Star sect's great elder mocked. Then, his gaze fell on Lu Qingqian and he said bluntly, Are there any powerhouses in the sect who want to come out and meet us? Everyone, the Qianzuan sect doesn't interfere in any of the matters of the godless continent. If any of you want to be the overlord of the godless continent, then go ahead. The Qianzuan sect won't fight for it, Lu Qingchen said. However, some things didn't mean that others wouldn't fight for it just because you said you wouldn't fight for it. Just like now, even if the Qianzuan sect expressed their stance, these people wouldn't let the Qianzuan sect go. What nonsense are you talking about? Let's get Jiangqun to come out, the Heavenly Star sect's great elder said coldly. He's been in seclusion for so long. Is he dead or is there something wrong with him? That's right. If Sect Master Jiangqun is still here, then we wouldn't dare to be too presumptuous. The Jin family's great elder nodded. When the first elder of the Supreme Combined Factions heard this, he nodded in agreement. Everyone, I've already said what I wanted to say. If you don't leave, then don't blame the Qianzuan sect for not knowing how to treat guests. Lu Qingchen's eyes suddenly turned cold, and his aura was already fluctuating. At the same time, a black shadow appeared beside Lu Qingchen. It was Emo Xingtian. On a mountain thousands of miles away from the Qianzuan sect, a young man was standing there. His body was covered in purple qi, and his domineering aura was overwhelming. There seemed to be the sun and the moon floating in his eyes. Since Jiang Lu and the others ascended, did the world think that there's no one left in the Qianzuan sect? The young man muttered, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a tyrannical sneer. That's good. Today, I can exercise my hands and feet. Lu Qingchen, I'll tell you the truth. Today, either you beat us back, or the Qianzuan sect will be sealed in the future. The Heavenly Star sect's great elder had no fear in his eyes. He even said bluntly, from now on, the Qianzuan sect can't appear in the world for 1,000 years. Oh? A threat? Or a threat? Or do you think that the Qianzuan sect has declined? Lu Qingchen's expression was strange. At this moment, he suddenly raised his head, looked into the distance, and muttered, they should be here, right? Chapter 640. At that moment, everyone could tell who Lu Qingchen was waiting for. However, given the situation today, it would be useless no matter who came, right? One had to know that the three sects had heard that Mu Yude had not recovered from his injuries after the battle with the sacred clan's land god. He was a half-dead person and could not fight at all. In that case, unless Jiangqun made a move today, the Qianzuan sect would not have a good time today. It seems that the Qianzuan sect has really declined. In that case, there's no need for it to exist. The Heavenly Star sect's first elder raised his eyebrows. He was the most arrogant person here. In response, Lu Qingchen smiled and didn't say anything. And Mo Xingtian sneered and looked coldly at the Heavenly Star sect's first elder. You won't live for long. Oh. Do you have a guest? Suddenly, a frivolous voice came from afar. Immediately after, the void was torn apart, and a young man covered in blood walked out of the void. His aura was a little dispirited, but his posture was tall and straight. Moreover, his body was burning with flames as if it was going to burn everything. He walked over just like that. Even though his body was stained with blood and his aura was dispirited, he did not look at the people from the three sections. He walked very naturally and very indifferently. The wisp of a smile at the corner of his mouth gave people the feeling of a spring breeze brushing past them. However, when the people from the three sects saw the young man, their expressions changed. Jiangchun? You're not dead? You're not in seclusion in the Qianzuan sect? Several questions came out of their mouths one after another. Some people's expressions palpitated, and their eyes flickered with fear. I went to the third mountain, Jiangchun said with a smile. He pointed at the Qianzuan sect's mountain gate and asked, do you want to go in? Then let's go in. There's no need to wait here. He went to the third mountain? Why is he covered in blood? He seems to be seriously injured. Everyone was puzzled. Why did he go to the third mountain? That was a forbidden area. They did not know that the third mountain was a forbidden area to others, but to Jiangqun, it was no different from his own home. After all, he had been there once, and there was no harm in going there again. What's more, the human emperor's attitude towards him was not bad. He would not make things difficult for him. However, something did happen on this trip to the third mountain. Jiang Qin was indeed injured. Overall, though, Jiang Qin had benefited greatly from his trip to the third mountain. What? The few of you don't want to enter the Qianzuan sect and are blocking the way here. What do you want to do? Jiang Qin smiled and said. Don't tell me you're here to see me? Jiang Qin, you've been in seclusion for so many years. What's your cultivation level now? The great elder of the Heavenly Star sect asked. He was as direct as ever. Demigod, Jiang Qin said. Is that enough? This demigod? At this moment, everyone was moved, and their hearts were filled with shock. One had to know that in this era, if there were no special circumstances and conditions, the highest cultivation level of a cultivator could reach was Celestial Decay 5th stage. To ordinary people, demigods were already invincible existences. However, this was a glorious era. Many opportunities and fortunes had appeared. For these three sects to be able to rise in this era, they must have received some kind of great fortune. Therefore, after these people recovered from their shock, they slowly calmed down. Especially after seeing the injuries on Jiang Qin's body, they calmed down even more. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a palm came down from the sky. Like a mountain, it crossed an immeasurable distance as if it came from the other side of the world. Everywhere this palm passed, mountains collapsed, rivers collapsed, and even space itself was shattered into pieces. Oh? Demigod? Jiang Qin was a little surprised. Under such circumstances, someone could become a demigod? Then, who was this person? It seems like your three sects are not simple, Jiang Qin whispered. Then, he squinted and raised his hand. Then, he clenched his fist and dashed out. Whoosh! After the 6 rumbling sounds, the 6 fist lights turned into a 6-colored circle and struck out from a distance of millions of miles. This was the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Boom! Boom! In the next moment, after a series of explosions, Jiang Qin's fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation collided with the palm. Both of their arms shook. Jiang Qin, in particular, was already heavily injured. Now that he had taken the attack head-on, blood was flowing out of his nose and mouth. However, the palm retreated and didn't attack anymore. However, after a few breaths, from another direction, a long golden blade pierced through the air. This long blade's aura was monstrous, and it was about to cut through everything. Like a golden dragon, it pierced through space, and its target was very clear. It was Jiang Qin. Which sect is this person from? Jiang Qin raised an eyebrow but didn't attack. Instead, he pointed at the people before the sect and said, If this blade dares to land within 1,000 miles of the Qianzuan sect, then these people will die. Oomph! After an unknown distance, a cold snort was heard. Then, the long golden blade suddenly stopped and disappeared into the void. It seems that there are demigods in all 3 sects, Jiang Qin said softly. He was very surprised. Jiang Qin didn't expect that in this glorious age, there would be so many opportunities and opportunities. There were actually demigods in all 3 sects. Once one broke through to the demigod realm, it was equivalent to breaking through the shackles. This also meant that they could continue to cultivate, and even cultivate until they became land deities. The 5 decay of heavens and demigods were a hurdle. Once they crossed this hurdle, they would be able to reach the demigod realm. Gentlemen, why are you still staying here? Do you think that I don't know your intentions? Or do you think that I don't dare to kill you? Jiang Qin said softly. He turned around and walked towards the sect. He waved his hand and said, Go. Don't come back again. With that, Jiang Qin paused and said, Go back and tell them that I'm not dead yet. The overlord position of the godless continent belongs to the Qianzuan sect. Lu Qinchen said before that the Qianzuan sect won't fight for the overlord position. The Starry Sky sect's great elder said in a low voice. I never said that I would fight for it. I'm just taking back what once belonged to me. Jiang Qin said softly. 3,000 years ago, The Qianzuan sect was the overlord of the godless continent. 3,000 years later, I'm back, and I'll take back the overlord position. Everyone please go back, Lu Qingchen said and glanced at them coldly. Then, he returned to the sect with Mo Xingtian. On a mountain peak in the distance, the young man who was emitting purple energy saw this scene and couldn't help but curl his lips. How boring! He thought that he could make a move today, but he didn't expect it to end just like that. Boss is still the boss. He can intimidate everyone by himself, the young man in purple said softly. Then, he quietly sat cross-legged on the mountain peak and didn't make a sound. Chapter 641. The three major sects had come to test the Qianzuan sect, but they had not expected to be scared off by Jiangchen alone. From now on, the Qianzuan sect would be in charge of the barren state, and no one would dare to come in a short period of time. However, everyone knew that in such a flourishing age, there would definitely be people who had broken through the shackles, and it would not be just one or two. For example, there were people in the three major sects who had broken through the shackles and become demigods. If this continued, it might not be long before there would be people above demigods, or even gods on land. Therefore, the Qianzuan sect could not continue like this, and it was time for them to make a move. Take the initiative to attack? At this moment, in the main hall of the Qianzuan sect, Jiangchen was sitting on the throne, frowning slightly as he looked at Lu Qingchen and Mo Xingtian below. Lu Qingchen had suggested that they should take the initiative to unify the godless continent as soon as possible. Only then could the Qianzuan sect sit firmly, and not have to worry about any trouble. Jiangchen could also cultivate in peace because of this. However, for Jiangchen, it was not very good for the Qianzuan sect to take the initiative to attack now. This was because Jiangchen had just cultivated to demigod cultivation, and he was injured, and his injuries were very serious. Even with the power of Jiangchen's divine body, he would not be able to recover from this injury without 3 to 5 years. It was not appropriate for the Qianzuan sect to take the initiative to attack when he was seriously injured. Moreover, now that there was peace everywhere, if the Qianzuan sect took action, they would definitely become the target of everyone. At that time, not to mention the three major sects, Lin Lang Wentian alone would be enough to give Jiangchen a headache. What about Mu Yud? How are his injuries? Jiangchen asked. He's half dead. Lu Qingchen sighed. If Mu Yud's injuries were healed, then the three major sects would be nothing. It was a pity that Mu Yud's injuries had not healed in the previous battle. If I had known this would happen, I would have unified the godless continent before Jianglu and the others ascended, Mo Xingtian said in a low voice, feeling very upset. However, Mo Xingtian's thinking was too simple. Back then, Jiangchen's cultivation was only at the Heaven's Blight Stage 5. In addition, Mu Yud could not make a move, and there was also Lin Lang Wentian. Even if the godless continent was unified at the beginning, after Jianglu and the others ascended, Lin Lang Wentian would still cause trouble. Moreover, in this glorious age, what was the use of a temporary unification? If they wanted to unify, they had to do it for a long time. Let's not talk about this. It was my idea to let them ascend, Jiangchen said. 30 years is neither long nor short, it will pass in the blink of an eye. Letting them go to the 9th heaven divine realm is also to protect them. But now, what should we do? Will the three sects give up? Lu Qingchen asked. There was no need to ask this question. The Jin clan, the Heavenly Star sect, and the Supreme sect, which one of them was easy to deal with? Who didn't have ambition? If these three families were willing to drop the matter, the godless continent would have been peaceful long ago. Seal the mountain. A few breaths later, Jiangchen suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and even his soul had become much dimmer. This scene truly worried Lu Qingchen and Mo Xingtian. What did you do at the third mountain? Mo Xingtian asked. Isn't it still subduing my physical body? Jiangchen sighed. Heavenly Profound Divine King's physical body was already spiritual, but it did not ascend. Jiang Chen's sneaky trip to the third mountain this time was precisely to subdue Heavenly Profound Divine King's physical body. However, subduing was subdued, but Jiang Chen was also severely injured. After I fuse with Heavenly Profound Divine King's physical body, I'll open the mountain gate, Jiang Chen said. Following that, his figure disappeared on the spot, leaving behind a pool of blood. Lu Qingchen and Mo Xingtian exchanged a glance, the worry in their eyes extremely thick. They could roughly guess how serious Jiang Chen's injuries were this time. Seal the mountain. Lu Qingchen let out a long sigh. Now that things had come to this was the only way. On this day, Xuanzuan's sect sealed the mountain gate and isolated themselves from the world. It was also on this day that Linlang Wentian made his move. First, he made a trip to the Jin family, then to the Supreme Sect, and finally to the Starry Sky Sect. The next day, the Jin family announced that they would side with Linlang Wentian, while the Supreme Sect and the Starry Sky Sect chose to ally. After I deal with the Supreme Sect and the Starry Sky Sect, I'll deal with you, Linlang Wentian said softly. Standing on the mountain peak, he looked in the direction of Xuanzuan's sect. Like Jiang Chen, he knew better than anyone else that there would be a battle between the two of them. Moreover, it was a battle of life and death. This was like fate that could not be avoided. Interesting. In this golden age, can you, the reincarnation of a divine king, survive? In a certain corner of this world, a young man shrouded in darkness whispered with a cold expression. He was also looking in the direction of Xuanzuan's sect. After a long time, he said, "Don't die. If you die, this world will be meaningless." Time was like water. It would constantly flow and never stop. Time passed slowly, but it was also fleeting. 10 years after Xuanzuan's sect sealed the mountain, on this day, all the experts in the Supreme Sect and the Starry Sky Sect moved out and lined up. Outside the two sects, the Jin family's patriarch led a group of heavenly human experts and stood side by side. "Jin family, I really didn't expect you to be such people. You actually sided with Linlang Wentian," the Supreme Sect's patriarch shouted. "It's not that our Jin family wants to side with them, but we have no choice." The Jin family's patriarch, Jin Yunlu, sighed. "In the face of absolute strength, our Jin family chose to go with the flow." "What do you mean by going with the flow?" the Supreme Sect's patriarch asked. "Going with the flow? That's it. He's called Linlang Wentian." Jin Yunlu raised his eyebrows. "Above the demigod level, he's infinitely close to the existence of the gods of the land." "What? Infinitely close to the gods of the land?" the Starry Sky Sect's patriarch exclaimed. How powerful was this cultivation? With this cultivation, he was probably invincible in this godless continent. However, the two patriarchs of the Supreme Sect and the Starry Sky Sect were unwilling. If they were given time, they would also be able to cultivate to this level. But no one would have thought that Linlang Wentian would not give them time. "Today, I'll give you two choices. Like the Jin family, go with the flow," Jin Yunlu said. "Otherwise, you'll die. I think it's not easy for the two of you to cultivate to this level. It would be a pity if you died just like that," Jin Yunlu said. "Why don't you join Linlang Wentian? We can create a great cause together and let the world remember it in the future." "Aye, this matter." The two patriarchs frowned. It was obvious that they were hesitating. However, at this moment, Linlang Wentian arrived. He was very calm. There was no fluctuation in his body, as if he was immortal. However, there were fragments of the great Tao floating in his eyes. In the depths of his pupils, there were divine halos flickering with divine light. This was a sign that he was about to become a god of the land. "The two of you, come with me to fight against the Xuanzuan sect." Linlang Wentian did not ask the Starry Sky Sect's patriarch and the Supreme Sect's patriarch for their intentions. After saying this, he turned around and left. It was because he did not need to ask. He knew very well that in the face of the general situation, these two people would make the right choice. As expected, the moment Linlang Wentian turned around, the two of them knelt down in unison and bowed deeply. They shouted, "Your Excellency!" Chapter 642. In the face of absolute strength, all ambitions would turn into bubbles. All of his dignity dissipated like dust. On this day, Lin Lang Wentian unified the top sects in the world. Then, many powerhouses set off, tore through the void, and headed towards the barren state. On the godless continent, many people saw the sky distorting. That was a powerhouse tearing through the void. There were also people who saw the clouds in the sky turn blood red. That was someone's blood energy soaring into the sky, dyeing the sky red. A divine weapon appeared. Its sharpness was like the sun, shining in all directions. The world is about to change. The situation of the godless continent is about to change completely. Some people were moved, thinking that after today, the true master of the godless continent would come out. There were also people who sighed. The 30-year deadline was approaching, and all the powerhouses should be on alert to deal with the sacred clan's land gods. There should not be a civil war. However, no one could stop this battle. Lin Lang Wentian's ambition was there, and everyone could see it. At this time, what's the use of unifying the godless continent? With the 30-year deadline, whether or not the godless continent can be preserved is a problem. It's really interesting. The godless continent is on the brink of life and death, and this group of people is still fighting for the position of overlord. Ridiculous. Many people ridiculed, and it was inevitable that they were a little unhappy. However, so what if they were unhappy in their hearts? If you can do it, then do it. If you can do it, then go and stop the sacred clan's land gods. Since you can't, then watch this group of people standing at the peak of the godless continent do what they want to do. This was the way of the world. There was no right or wrong, only your own choice. Sect leader hasn't come out of seclusion yet? At this moment, in the Qianzuan sect, Lu Qingchen looked worried. He had already noticed that there were more than a dozen extremely powerful auras approaching the Qianzuan sect. Without even thinking, it must be Lin Lang Wentian's group. Sect leader hasn't responded. And Mo Xingtian sighed. Mu Yud is also in seclusion, and he won't wake up no matter how much I call him. Then this battle, how should we fight? Lu Qingchen frowned. Looking at the current situation, the Qianzuan sect was in a hopeless situation. Boom! As his voice fell, an explosion came from the mountain gate of the Qianzuan sect. Then, the sect-protecting formation was shattered, and the Qianzuan sect was revealed to the world. Lu Qingchen and Mo Xingtian rushed out immediately, just in time to see Lin Lang Wentian's group standing outside the mountain gate. There weren't that many of them, only 13 of them, but every single one of them was a supreme being. The head of the Jin family, Jin Yunlu, was a demigod. The Heavenly Star sect master was a demigod. The sect leader of the Supreme Joint faction, a demigod. Lin Lang inquires the heavens, above the demigod realm, infinitely close to being a land deity. The other 9 were all at peak Deva 5th Blight. This lineup was enough to wipe out everything, unless a god from the land intervened. However, there were no land gods in the Qianzuan sect. The only strongest person, Mu Yud, was in secluded cultivation and couldn't fight at all. From the looks of it, Qianzuan sect was going to come to an end today. Kill yourself? Lin Lang Wentian said softly, his voice cold. Since I'm here today, I won't leave anyone in the Qianzuan sect alive, nor will I give you the chance to surrender. What a joke! Qianzuan sect will either fight to the death, or never surrender. Lu Qingchen raised his eyebrows, looked at Mo Xingtian, and asked, Are you afraid of death? Death? If it weren't for the leader, I would have been dead long ago. Mo Xingtian said, You've already died once. Why would you be afraid of dying a second time? Then, let's do it! Lu Qingchen's eyes narrowed, and his aura erupted like a rainbow, piercing through the clouds. Mo Xingtian hid his figure and didn't release any aura, but everyone knew that he had also made his move. Everyone, are you here to destroy my boss's foundation? At this moment, a young man with purple aura all over his body flew over from afar. Before he even arrived, his tyrannical aura had already spread out. Moreover, There was a domineering aura that was like a tornado that swept across the area. Wakako? You really didn't descend? Wakako the tyrant? Many people exclaimed. They had long heard of Wakako's name. Leave these 5 people to me. Wakako was the tyrant. Whether it was his actions or his words, they were all domineering. He pointed at the 5 heavenly decay stage 5 powerhouses and said mockingly, I'm going to fight 5 people by myself. I don't think the demigods and pavilion masters will interfere, right? Humph, you're just an ant. We won't bother to attack you. Jean Yulio's face was full of contempt. So what if you're the tyrant? You're courting death by fighting 5 people at the same level as you. That's not necessarily true, Wakako said softly. With a boom, he charged out like an ancient beast. Lin Langwentian didn't say anything and just stood outside the mountain gate. In his eyes, this battle didn't need to be fought at all. However, he didn't mind watching the show. Of course, he was also wary of one person, and that was Mu Yud. If that guy came out of seclusion and fought with his life on the line, Lin Langwentian would have a headache. As for Jiang Qin, Lin Langwentian didn't take him to heart at all. That was because he knew very well that no matter how strong Jiang Qin's talent was, it was impossible for him to break through to the demigod realm in such a short time. Meanwhile, Lin Langwentian was infinitely close to being a terrestrial god. Even if Jiang Qin broke through to the demigod realm, he wouldn't be afraid. Just like that, Lin Langwentian and the others stood at the side and watched the battle. They looked very calm and comfortable. They all knew that if nothing unexpected happened, they would definitely win this battle. If the Qianzuan sect is destroyed today, Jiang Qin will die. If Jiang Qin dies, wouldn't it be very boring for me to stay in this world? Suddenly, a black shadow floated over. He attacked very quickly, like a cold light cutting through the void, flashing and disappearing in a flash. In an instant, a Deva's Blight powerhouse froze a second ago. Then, the top of his head shattered, and his soul was severed. His soul even exploded, and he died on the spot. Who? A demigod? At that moment, Jin Yunlu and the others exclaimed. To be able to do that, the person's cultivation must be a demigod. However, in the Qianzuan sect, apart from Jiang Chen and Mu Yud, who else had reached the demigod realm? It's you, Mu Xingyan! Lin Langwentian narrowed his eyes. He saw Mu Xingyun hiding in the dark. He was very surprised. Mu Xingyun was clearly Jiang Chen's enemy. Why would he help the Qianzuan sect at this moment? Could it be that the two of them had reconciled? Don't be confused. I just want him to die in my hands, Mu Xingyun said. When he's at his peak and I'm at my peak, the two of us will fight to the death. That's what I'm thinking. Hey, you alone can't change the outcome today. Jin Yulu raised his eyebrows. With a golden sword in hand, he rushed into the void and headed straight for Mu Xingyun. He alone can't change the outcome, but what if there are 2 of them? Suddenly, a frivolous voice came from afar, and a lotus flower bloomed in the sky. Chapter 643. A lotus bloomed, and 9-colored light flew. When it bloomed, 72 lotus leaves appeared. 72 lotuses. Who? As far as I know, there is only one person in the world who has 72 lotuses. The ancestor of the Chang'an family, Chang'an Chang'e, later known as Nian Chang'e. At this moment, everyone stared at the lotus with nervous expressions. Perhaps, they did not expect that Nian Chang'e, who had disappeared for so long, was still in the godless continent. Moreover, his cultivation had already broken through to the demigod realm. 1 lotus and 1 person came from the sky, like a banished immortal descending to the mortal world. His aura surged, and when his eyes opened and closed, there seemed to be thousands of Daos floating in the bottom of his eyes. Nian Chang'e! So what if there are 2 demigods? Do you think you can change today's outcome? The sect master of the supreme sect raised his eyebrows. I'm waiting here, what can you do? What? Nian Chang'e smiled playfully and said, Do you still remember that sentence, Whether the world is in chaos or not, I, Chang'an, have the final say? That was in the past. The sect master of the Heavenly Star sect rebuked angrily. Do you really think the Chang'an family is still here? You are the only one left in the Chang'an family. How can a single person contend against all of us? Contend? Nian Chang'e seemed a little surprised, then laughed and said, Everyone, I think you have misunderstood. I am not here to contend with you. What do you mean? Are you here to surrender? Everyone was stunned, and for a moment, they did not understand what Nian Chang'e meant. However, Nian Chang'e's next sentence made the group furious. What is the word contend? Today, I am here to kill you. Nian Chang'e's eyes narrowed. I have never taken you seriously, and you do not have the strength to fight with me. This word contend naturally can't be said. Only when the strength is equal can there be the word contend, Nian Chang'e said. And in my eyes I am a dragon, and you are ants. Presumptuous. Nian Chang'e, you are too arrogant. At this moment, the sect master of the Heavenly Star sect and the sect master of the Supreme sect attacked together, like fierce tigers, rushing towards Nian Chang'e. Have you seen flowers bloom? Have you ever asked why the flowers are so red? The blood-stained lotus flowers are even brighter, Nian Chang'e said softly. His hands pressed down lightly, and the 72 lotuses bloomed with multicolored light. Under the multicolored light, there seemed to be endless power surging, and there were even many illusory figures floating up and down. There were also all kinds of weapons that manifested, and the heroic spirits of the previous generations appeared. 72 lotuses, 72 spells, were all used by Nian Chang'e. There was no collision or resistance. The moment the 72 lotuses bloomed, the Heavenly Star Sect Master and the Supreme Combined Sect Master were submerged. When the light disappeared, the two of them no longer existed in this world. I've said it before. I'm not here today to fight against you. I'm here to kill, Nian Chang'e said softly as her gaze locked onto Lin Lang Wentian. You are no match for me. Lin Lang Wentian shook her head. You should understand that even if all the people I brought here die today, as long as I don't die, the outcome will not change. Infinitely close to becoming a land god? Nian Chang'e raised his eyebrows. Today, I will use these 72 lotuses to defy the heavens. With the power of a demigod, I will fight you to the death. Fight to the death? Are you worthy? Lin Lang Wentian said contemptuously. Now, the only person who can make me afraid is that stinky Taoist. It's a pity that he is in seclusion and can't come out. Do you know why I haven't made a move yet? It's because I'm waiting for that damn Taoist to come out, Lin Lang Wentian said. Now, so much time has passed. Since he hasn't come out yet, it means that he can't come out. Since he can't come out, then today's battle should end. No one can make me afraid anymore. After saying that, Lin Lang Wentian turned around with his back facing Nian Chang'e. Then, he raised his palm, and a burst of divine power erupted from his palm. His palm stretched out and slowly fell across the void. The chi of the great path rose and fell, and the divine power burned like divine light. He wanted to destroy the Qianzuan sect with one palm. At this moment, all the disciples and elders in the Qianzuan sect were moved. They could not resist Lin Lang Wentian's palm. Do you regret joining the Qianzuan sect? A disciple asked the person beside him with a trace of fear in his eyes. No. The person beside him shook his head. Although there was fear in his eyes, there was no sign of regret. Life and death were unpredictable. Everything in the world might be predestined, or it might not be. However, one should not regret what they had decided on. I have no regrets. I have no regrets even if I die with the Qianzuan sect. At this moment, everyone in the Qianzuan sect shouted. Although they were afraid of death, they did not regret it. How dare you! Nian Chang'e shouted, and the 72 lotuses bloomed again. The 72 types of supernatural powers were like an upside-down galaxy, suppressing Lin Lang Wentian. Bang! However, Lin Lang Wentian did not care about Nian Chang'e. He raised his hand and waved, dispersing the galaxy formed by the 72 types of supernatural powers. Moreover, a palm print was like a dragon, bombarding Nianchanga's body. Pfft! Fresh blood spurted out from Nianchanga's mouth. His body shook, and blood flowed out from his 7 orifices. However, he did not fall. He wiped the blood off his face and staggered towards the glittering jewels seeking heaven. He could not watch the Qianzuan sect be destroyed like this. He could not watch Jiangqun be killed. Sigh. I have no choice this time. I can't stop it. At this moment, Mu Xingyun held Jin Yinliu's head and stood in the void near the Qianzuan sect. He was very strong, but he had tried his best. Facing Lin Langwetian, who was infinitely close to becoming a land god, he really had no choice. Are the disciples of this era all so pessimistic? I'm not dead yet. Just as the palm was about to cover the Qianzuan sect, a slightly lazy voice came from the back mountain of the Qianzuan sect. Then, a young man walked out of a cave. He brushed the dust off his body, looked up at the sky, and curled his lips. Infinitely close to becoming a land god? That means you're not a land god yet. Since you're not, where did you get the confidence to destroy my Qianzuan sect? The young man said contemptuously. Sect leader! Jiangqun! Boss! At this moment, everyone was shocked. Even Lin Langwetian was moved. He thought that Jiangqun was also in seclusion and would not come out. He even thought that Jiangqun might have run away long ago. However, who would have thought that Jiangqun had always been in the Qianzuan sect? He also did not expect that Jiangqun would come out of seclusion in such a manner. Supreme! I'm a demigod. You're above a demigod. Do you dare to fight me? Jiangqun stared at Lin Langwetian and raised his palm at the same time. The mystic light in his palm was like a long dragon, directly shaking off Lin Langwetian's descending palm. Chapter 644. A demigod challenging a demigod? This was something that had never happened before. Moreover, Lin Langwetian's cultivation was infinitely close to that of a land god. The gap between Jiangqun and Lin Langwetian was like a chasm in everyone's eyes that was difficult to cross. However, when they saw Jiangqun's confident expression, they began to doubt it again. Even Lin Langwetian was stunned for a moment, and he suddenly felt a little nervous. Could it be that his combat strength? Lin Langwetian thought, but his expression did not change, and he would not retreat. At this point, it was time to settle the grudge between him and Jiangqun. Speaking of which, the source of the grudge between the martial pavilion and Jiangqun was that Jiangqun had crippled the cultivation of one of Lin Langwetian's illegitimate sons. This could be said to be a small matter. However, who would have thought that such a small matter would develop to such an extent? Perhaps this was the so-called rising of a wave, the tide beating the shore. All of you back off. Between you and me, only one of us can survive today, Lin Langwetian said in a deep voice. Even if I die here today, I will not retreat. That's exactly what I want. Jiangqun's eyes narrowed, and the divine light on his body shone brightly. The power of a demigod surged on his body like a tide. He entered the void and avoided the crowd, worried that the fluctuations of the battle would implicate the entire Qianzuan sect. Lin Langwetian's face was gloomy as he took a step forward and followed closely behind. Outside the Qianzuan sect, Wakako, Nianchanga, and the others looked solemn. They were really worried for Jiangqun. With the cultivation of a demigod, he was fighting an ultimate powerhouse who was infinitely close to a land god. Did he have a chance of winning this battle? Where's Mu Yud? Why hasn't he come out yet? Nianchanga asked. Don't mention it. He's like a living dead. Lu Qingqin sighed. He was seriously injured in the battle back then. Sigh. Nianchanga sighed. If Mu Yud could fight, Lin Langwetian would not be a big problem. Although they might not be able to defeat him, Lin Langwetian would definitely retreat. But now, this was a battle of life and death. At this moment, in the void thousands of miles away from Qianzuan sect, Jiang Chen stood tall and straight like an ancient tree. Divine light shone from his body, making him look like a brilliant sun. The heavenly halberd lay horizontally in his right hand, and an aura of calamity filled the air. This was the power of the 6 calamities. On the other side, Linlang Wetian was barehanded. Her gaze was focused, and divine power surged from her body. Her hair danced in the wind, and she looked like a monarch. She looked even more like a war god who had gone through hundreds of battles. "It's time to end this." "Yes," the two of them whispered to each other. This battle had finally arrived. However, what made Linlang Wentian puzzled was, what did Jiang Chen have to fight with him? Just based on the cultivation of a demigod? What kind of joke was this? Was that enough? Fuse. Just as glittering jewel inquiring heaven was feeling puzzled, Jiang Chen spoke softly. Following which, 2 explosive sounds rang out from within his body. In an instant, 2 illusory figures of deities appeared. They were the physical bodies of Heavenly Origin Deity King and Heavenly Profound Deity King. At this moment, the 2 physical bodies crumbled and turned into specks of divine light that entered Jiang Chen's body. The divine light merged with Jiang Chen's body and soul. In a few breaths' time, Jiang Chen's cultivation soared and reached the level of a demigod. However, in terms of aura, Jiang Chen was still a notch weaker than Linlang Wentian. "Is this your final trump card?" Linlang Wentian asked. Then, she sneered and said, "It's not enough." "I think it's enough," Jiang Chen whispered. The heavenly halberd in his hand swept across, and a scarlet light that seemed to have come from hell shot out. The light evolved along the way, turning into an Azura, an evil spirit, and finally a blood-red dragon. "Fight!" Linlang Wentian roared. She clenched her fists and blasted them out. Boom! With 2 explosions, the blood-red dragon was shattered. At the same time, a fist light seemed to have broken through the shackles of space. In a flash, it rushed to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen reacted quickly. His figure moved horizontally, and at the same time, he stabbed the heavenly halberd in his hand into the void. His hands formed a series of seals, and cryptic runes floated. 6 calamities, heavenly calamity. At this moment, Jiang Chen didn't hesitate at all. He exerted the strongest move of the 6 disasters, heavenly calamities. Heavenly calamity. As soon as he finished speaking, dark clouds gathered in the sky. Lightning flashed, and a blazing fire fell from the sky. Rain poured down. If one looked closely, the raindrops were as sharp as needles. They were so sharp that even the power of the great Tao was pierced. "Is this the 6 calamities that you cultivated when you were Heavenly Origin Deity King?" Linlang Wentian raised her eyebrows and shook her head. "It's hard to hurt me with this move alone. Take this move first." Jiang Chen kept forming seals. The heavenly halberd actually turned into divine light, and seemed to be breaking apart. Next, phantoms of the heavenly halberd appeared beside Jiang Chen. It was as if thousands of swords were shot out at the same time. They carried an endless and terrifying aura and suppressed Linlang Wentian. "How can you hurt me with this kind of power?" Linlang Wentian roared. She clenched her fists and danced in front of her. Her attacks were wide open, and there seemed to be a big river flowing between her hands. As the big river surged, the heavy rain that filled the sky was scattered. The lightning subsided, and even the scorching flames were extinguished. Her hands pushed out like the waves of the sea, obliterating the phantoms of the heavenly halberd that filled the sky. "Is this the 6 calamities?" "Too weak!" Linlang Wentian shouted and disappeared on the spot. Her speed was extremely fast, like a flash of light. When she appeared again, she was already in front of Jiang Chen. "So fast!" Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. Before he could react, he was hit by Linlang Wentian's punch. After this punch, Jiang Chen's body shook, and many cracks appeared on his body. They looked like a spider web, and they covered his whole body. At the same time, his soul was throbbing, as if it was about to be annihilated. Linlang Wentian was very arrogant. Not giving Jiang Chen a chance to resist, she grabbed Jiang Chen's shoulder and said, Feel the power that is infinitely close to that of a god on land. Then, she pulled violently and Jiang Chen's left hand was broken. Even a few of his sternum were broken. Puff! At this moment, Jiang Chen coughed up blood and hurriedly retreated. Along the way, he burned his blood essence to rebuild his left hand. He also used the power of his divine body and the immortal fire to heal his injuries in an instant. Screech! Then, a long screech was heard. The immortal bird Taoist soul floated behind Jiang Chen, and flames swept out. This was the heaven-burning fire. So what if you have a Taoist soul? I have stood tall on the godless continent for many years. I control the martial pavilion and the godless continent. My personal strength is not something you can imagine, Lin Lang Wentian said. Her body trembled, and a large black flag appeared from her body. Wan Junkie? This is your Taoist soul? Jiang Chen exclaimed in surprise. Such a doctrined soul hadn't appeared for many eras, and it had almost been forgotten. This was one of the top Taoist souls. Chapter 645. In a certain era, there was a person who possessed the Tao spirit of the 10,000 army flag. That person had commanded the armies of the world and ruled the godless continent for tens of thousands of years. However, very few people knew about the 10,000 army flag's remarkable ability. They only knew that the 10,000 army flag could command tens of thousands of armies. As for what kind of army it commanded, very few people knew. However, Jiang Chen knew very well that the army commanded by the 10,000 army flag was not the kind that people thought it was. It was an existence that could command the Tao army. What was the Tao army? They were the invisible, pure souls within the great Tao. It was a carrier of the Tao. It was very mysterious and ethereal. It was difficult for ordinary people to see it. Even Jiang Chen had never seen it before. He only knew that the Tao army was very strong. A mere immortal bird Tao spirit dares to be so arrogant in front of me, the 10,000 army flag? Lin Langwentian's face was full of contempt. He waved the 10,000 army flag with both hands. Instantly, the surrounding Tao energy surged. Immediately after, blurry figures appeared in the great path, like generals. They carried the Tao energy, but they seemed to be illusory. They rushed out of the Tao and rushed into Lin Langwentian's body. In an instant, Lin Langwentian's aura skyrocketed. He was just a little bit away from breaking through the shackles and becoming a god of the land. With the Tao and the army following me, how are you going to fight me? Lin Langwentian raised his eyebrows. He carried the flag on his shoulder and rushed out. This time, his speed was even faster. In fact, Jiang Chen could not even see his figure. Bang! Jiang Chen didn't know what was going on, but he felt like he had suffered a heavy blow on his back. The dreadful power almost destroyed his soul. As for his physical body, it was blasted into powder. Not even a trace of it was left. Screech! However, in the next moment, the immortal bird Tao spirit let out a long cry. Flames surged and Jiang Chen was reborn from the fire. His physical body was reconstructed. Let's see how many times you can reconstruct yourself. Lin Langwentian's eyes narrowed. His figure was like a ghost, and his speed was extremely fast. He didn't give Jiang Chen any chance to fight back. His fist struck out again and again, causing Jiang Chen's body to explode again and again. After half an instant's stick's worth of time, Jiang Chen's body continued to explode and reforge. The power of the immortal bird Tao soul continued to weaken. Now, the bird's Tao soul dimmed as it was forced back into Jiang Chen's soul. This time, can you still reassemble? Lin Langwentian's face was full of contempt as he laughed maniacally. In the end, I've won this battle. No! There was no suspense in this battle. I could have won. Facing such an arrogant Lin Langwentian, Jiang Chen spat out a mouthful of blood and said softly, "You're too confident." What? Lin Langwentian narrowed her eyes and immediately discovered a clue. At some unknown point in time, runes had appeared all around him, beneath his feet, and around him. Within the formation patterns there were also restriction runes. In the depths of the restriction runes, there were even talismans flickering like stars. Formation, restriction, talismans? Lin Lang Wetian exclaimed. He didn't know when Jiang Chen had set up all of this. Every time my body explodes because of you, my blood and flesh will turn into formation patterns, runes, and talismans. Jiang Chen said mockingly. Now, I don't know how many times I've been blown up by you before I've completed the formation, talismans, and restriction. With that said, Jiang Chen waved his hand and a barrier rose up. Like a dreamlike bubble, it trapped Lin Lang Wetian inside. Life-slaughtering formation. Origin transformation restriction. Dark destruction talisman. Jiang Chen shouted and formed seals with both hands, directly activating the three great formations. At this moment, violent power erupted within the formation. Like a heavenly punishment, it drowned Lin Lang Wetian. Under the explosion, one could vaguely hear Lin Lang Wetian's screams. Obviously the formation that Jiang Chen had set up worked. However, as time passed, Jiang Chen's expression became more and more ugly. It was because the screams in the formation never stopped. This meant that Lin Lang Wetian was still alive. And this kind of formation wouldn't last for very long. You can't kill me. Half an hour later, a long howl was heard. Then, the formation collapsed and Lin Lang Wetian appeared in front of Jiang Chen, covered in blood. His appearance was very miserable. Only half of his body was left, and even a part of his soul was obliterated. His soul was dim and lightless. Even so, Lin Lang Wetian was still alive. At this moment, Lin Lang Wetian started to breathe. The essence of heaven and earth turned into a tide and was absorbed into his body. With the essence in his body and the accompaniment of thousands of soldiers, Lin Lang Wetian's injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. The Fantian halberd in his hand slashed out, and a mysterious light split the void. It was as if it was going to split open the sky. If you had set up another formation, I might have really died. Lin Lang Wetian also had a lingering fear in his heart. It was a pity that he was still alive. Those three formations didn't take his life. Now that he had come out, Jiang Chen had no chance of winning. Boom! With a loud explosion, Lin Lang Wetian punched out and directly sent Jiang Chen's Fatian halberd flying. Then, he dragged his injured body and grabbed Jiang Chen's neck. You deserve to die, Lin Lang Wetian said coldly. He didn't expect that with his strength that was infinitely close to that of a god on land, he would need to expend so much effort to kill Jiang Chen. He used to run amok. Why is he so miserable now? Jiang Haoren, this is a member of your Jiang family. Aren't you going to help him? Help! Suddenly, three young men appeared in the distance, each of them surging with demonic aura. These three people were Jiang Haoren, Lu Songang, and Chen Lu Dao. Let's go! Jiang Chen's eyes were red as he gestured for the three of them to leave quickly. However, in the next moment, demonic aura erupted from the three of them. Like an upside-down black river, it poured into Jiang Chen's body. Ah! Jiang Chen screamed as ghostly cries came from his body. At the same time, an extremely violent force erupted and actually shook off Lin Lang Wetian's palm. See that? We are demons. This is evil, Lu Songyang said mockingly. The Jiang family, one Jiang Haoren has become a demon, and the other Jiang Chen has become an evil spirit. Interesting. This is a great evil spirit. I wonder if he can defeat Lin Lang Wetian after his evil spirit erupts. Chen Lu Dao frowned. Jiang Haoren heard that and shuddered. He muttered, Who cares if he can win or not? He has become a great evil spirit anyway. Let's go first so that we don't get hurt accidentally. Back then, the Empress had helped to seal the evil spirit in Jiang Chen's body. Now, Jiang Haoren and the other two saw that Jiang Chen was no match for them. They used demonic aura to undo the seal in Jiang Chen's body, causing the evil spirit in his body to erupt again. At this moment, Jiang Chen's body was emitting gray fog. The evil spirit was soaring to the sky, and the trace of clarity in his eyes was gradually disappearing. Chapter 646. Back then, because of Mu Yud's mistake, Jiangchun became a great evil spirit. Empress Ho took action and suppressed the evil spirit in Jiangchen's body. But now, the evil spirit in his body was triggered, and Jiangchun became an evil spirit again. Of course, Jiang Haoren and the other two could not be blamed. They knew very well that in today's battle, if Jiangchun did not become an evil spirit, he would not be a match for Linlang Wentian. Only when he became an evil spirit, with the support of the evil spirit, Jiangchun had the strength to fight. However, they did not know that a second before Jiangchun became an evil spirit, he roared in his heart. 3 demons! Are you tricking me? One must know that in today's battle, since Jiangchun took action, he was confident. Although he might not be able to defeat Linlang Wentian, he would not die. After all, Jiangchun had merged the bodies of 2 divine kings, Tian Yuan and Tian Xian. He had a trump card. But who would have thought that before he could use his trump card, the evil spirit in his body was triggered by Jiang Haoren and the other 2? At this moment, Jiangchun wanted to cry but had no tears. You think you can fight me just because you became an evil spirit? You underestimate me too much. Linlang Wentian raised his eyebrows. In his eyes, so what if he became an evil spirit? Under the absolute difference in cultivation, even if he died and became an evil spirit, he would not be a match for him. However, it was a pity that his thinking was too naive. Boom! At this moment, Jiangchun roared. The evil spirit in his body was like a gray fog that rushed into the sky. He threw a punch, the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It was like a ball of light that not only carried the power of the 6 paths, but also a terrifying evil spirit. Under the punch, Linlang Wentian raised his hand to block it. When the fist and palm collided, there seemed to be a shocking explosion of thunder. Then, 6 rays of fist radiance exploded, shattering Linlang Wentian's palm and then bombarding his chest. Poof! After a muffled groan, Linlang Wentian staggered a few steps back, his eyes full of shock. He could not understand why Jiangchen's combat strength had soared so much after becoming an evil spirit when there was such a huge gap between his cultivation and his. Could it be that Jiangchen was really going to defy the heavens and kill a god today? Impossible! I'm infinitely close to becoming a god, you're just a demigod. How can you fight me? Even if I become an evil spirit, I, Linlang Wentian, can still suppress you. Linlang Wentian roared and waved the 10,000 army flag, and the army. The power of the great path spread out from his body like ripples. When he clenched his fists, one could see an army floating above his hands. The next moment, it could be seen that Linlang Wentian punched with both fists, and the radiance of her fists turned into a great army that was about to engulf Jiangchen. Roar! Then, in the end, Aza's a demon spirit's body, Linlang S and San's spirit summoning? Linlang Wentian was shocked. Jiangchen still knew how to use this method at such a moment. Summoning spirits with baleful aura, what kind of plaything could he summon? At the very least, Linlang Wentian had never seen or heard of using evil spirits to summon a battle spirit. This is the spirit of an ancient evil spirit? After a few breaths, Linlang Wentian cried out in surprise. That was because a man with a very tall body, like a mountain, came out of the Linlang Wentian's body was emitting gray fog, and even his eyes and pupils were gray. He strode out with a broken spear in his hand. With a shake, Linlang Wentian's fist radiance was shattered. Even the army summoned by the 10,000 army flag was reduced to ashes by the spear. Kill! At that moment, Jiangchen roared, and the ancient evil spirit he summoned was even more ferocious. His body was too huge, and when he walked, the surrounding void shook. The spear swept across, and evil spirits soared into the sky. Like a gray mystic light, it was about to cut open the endless void. Damn it! Evil spirits can also summon spirits? Linlang Wentian cursed. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing. He glared at Jiangqin, and the thought of retreating emerged in his heart. That was because he knew very well that if Jiangqin continued to be corroded by the evil spirit, it would not be long before his body collapsed. At that time, he could choose not to fight, but Jiangqin would die. However, just as he was about to retreat, he realized that gray stone pillars had appeared around him. Between each of the stone pillars, there were black chains of runes entwined around them. After they were connected together, they enveloped this area of the void like a cage. You've already lost consciousness after becoming an evil spirit. When did you cast this forbidden technique's cage? Lin Lang Wentian exclaimed. How could a person who had lost consciousness set up a forbidden technique's cage? Who told you that I've completely lost consciousness? Jiang Chen's face was ferocious, but there was a flame burning in the depths of his pupils. That was the flame of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. Using the flame of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp to protect the last trace of consciousness in the depths of his soul. You haven't lost consciousness? At this moment, Lin Lang Wentian felt that things had gotten out of hand and was no longer in his control. He had become a great evil spirit and still retained a trace of consciousness. Could he really beat him? You're only infinitely close to becoming a god on land, but in the end, you're still a demigod. Jiangqin said mockingly. His voice was very ear-piercing, because his current consciousness was very weak. Sometimes, even the flames of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp were swaying, as if they would be annihilated by the evil spirit. Desolation! Suddenly, Jiangqin let out a long howl, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Then, he rushed out and swept down. The cold light of the sword pierced through the void, and the might of the sword light illuminated the entire godless continent. On this day, there were mortals who knelt down, thinking that a god had descended from the 9 heavens. On this day, there were sword cultivators who roared into the sky. Seeing this sword light, they broke through their shackles. On this day, the mountains and rivers shook, and the sun, moon, and stars dimmed because of this sword. It was also on this day that Lin Lang Wentian's head was cut off for the first time since he started cultivating. At this moment, in the void, Lin Lang Wentian's head was separated from his body, but he was not completely dead. He reconstructed his physical body and fled into the distance at the first moment. This time, he was really afraid. How can the name of the sect master of the Qianzuan sect be used for nothing? Jiang Chen's voice was still ear-piercing and very low. However, this voice was filled with confidence. In the next moment, in this void, spells, sword lights, saber lights, formations, barriers, restrictions, talismans, musical notes, sharp arrows, came out layer by layer. It was as if the sky was being split open, and it was more like there were bright fireworks blooming in this place. As all living beings in the world can see, today, I, Jiangqin, will send off the pavilion master of the martial pavilion. Lin Lang Wentian, have a safe journey. These 2 sentences resounded throughout the entire godless continent. Everyone saw that in that area of the void, brilliant and dazzling to the extreme. However, they could not see Lin Lang Wentian. A resplendent firework, a glorious era, a peerless person of a generation, ended in the extreme. Just as Jiangqin said, Lin Lang Wentian, have a safe journey. Chapter 647. The grudge between Jiangqin and Lin Lang Wentian was finally over. No one would have thought that a person who was infinitely close to becoming a land god would actually be killed by Jiangqin. However, everyone knew that if Jiangqin hadn't become a fiend, this battle would have been over. Even if Jiangqin used the power of Tian Yuan and Tian Xian, it would still be very difficult to fight against Lin Lang Wentian. After all, that was only a part of his strength. As for fiends, Jiangqin could use all of them. At this moment, everyone watched the fireworks dissipate and looked at the void that was still rippling with waves, their hearts filled with emotions. An overlord of a generation, not to become a god, but to unify the godless continent, but in the end, it was destroyed. Someone sighed, feeling unworthy for Lin Lang Wentian. There were also people who smiled bitterly. Perhaps this was the most difficult thing to understand in the world. She could have ascended to become a god, but because of a trace of obsession, she insisted on competing for hegemony on the godless continent. In the end, not even a handful of yellow soil was left. From now on, for a long time, Jianzuan's sect can be considered the true overlord of the godless continent. After more than 3,000 years, Jianzuan's sect has once again reached the top because of one person. However, what was the use of Jianzuan's sect unifying the godless continent at this moment? In a few years, the land god of the sacred clan would be born. At that time, who could contend against him? Jiang Chen had become a fiend, could use fiendish energy, and his combat strength was formidable. However, when encountering a real land god, was Jiang Chen's strength enough? He's gone! At this moment, many people saw that in the void, Jiang Chen's entire body was shrouded in gray fog, and the last trace of clear consciousness in his eyes was fading. The myriad transformation heavenly lamp couldn't protect Jiang Chen for too long. After becoming a great fiend, the fiendish energy corroded the soul. The myriad transformation heavenly lamp could only save his life, but it couldn't keep Jiang Chen awake. He looked around deeply, as if he saw Jianzuan's sect, Nian Chang'e, and the others. He smiled, then turned around, leaving the world with a lonely back view. He entered the caves and went somewhere unknown. Perhaps he would never come out in this lifetime. Because he was afraid. He was afraid that after losing consciousness, he would kill the innocent. He was even more afraid of hurting the people around him. To Jiang Chen, leaving this place was perhaps the best choice. 3,000 years ago, he was the king. 3,000 years later, he is still the king of the godless continent. Unfortunately, the world has made fools of us, and a god of the land has appeared. It's a pity that I've become a great evil spirit, and it's hard to turn back. As everyone sighed in regret, Jiang Chen's figure gradually disappeared. Finally, he stepped into the primal chaos. Boss. Jiang Chen? At this moment, everyone in the sect was filled with grief. Yes, Jiang Chen had won this battle. But he had sacrificed too much. After becoming a great evil spirit, there was no turning back. Would she be able to see him again in this lifetime? Would he be able to regain consciousness in this lifetime? Perhaps he wouldn't. At the very least, since ancient times, those who had become great fiends were like walking corpses, their consciousness no longer existing. Damn it! I refuse to accept this. Why? There are so many living beings in the world, why did my boss sacrifice so much? Why? Wakako roared. His eyes were red, and he felt that something was wrong with this world. Even Nian Chang'e began to doubt. When did the world become like this? Everyone wanted to live, but why didn't those who wanted to live work hard themselves? Could it be that when danger came, the strong had to hold up the sky? However, everyone started off as a weakling, one step at a time. When Jiang Chen was still weak, was there anyone who helped him like this? Was there anyone who was willing to hold up the sky for him? This is the world that my boss fought for. All the major families, sects, and legacy forces in the world come to my sect and kneel down within one day. On this day, Wakako completely went berserk. His heart was filled with resentment, unwillingness, and even more grief. His long roar spread throughout the world. He was not Jiang Chen, he was the tyrant. Jiang Chen was gone, and he wanted to use his own means to protect Jiang Chen. Sigh. Nian Chang'e's side came to Wakako's side, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "There's not much time left, I'll leave Jianzuan's sect to you." "What about you? What are you going to do?" Wakako asked. "In this era, there aren't many people who can become land gods in a short period of time. Perhaps I'm the only one left now." Nian Chang'e smiled bitterly. "He's gone, so the rest will naturally be left to me." "Is there enough time?" Wakako asked. "What do you think?" Nian Chang'e's expression became more bitter, and he shrugged, saying, "At most I'll die." After saying that, Nian Chang'e did not stay any longer. He stepped out and left this place. In the next day, all the sects, families, and legacy forces in the entire godless continent came to Qianzuan's sect. There was a sea of people, and everyone knelt down. Wakako stood in the main hall of Qianzuan's sect. He did not sit on the throne because he knew that he was protecting this country for Jiangchen. The hierarch's position was Jiangchen's. It was his boss's. This position is now empty. Do you know why? Wakako said coldly. As soon as these words came out, the people kneeling outside trembled all over. They all knew that if it weren't for Jiangchen, the land god would have opened the door of darkness a long time ago and destroyed the godless continent. From now on, Qianzuan's sect will be the leader, and Jiangchen will be honored. From now on, Qianzuan's sect will be the leader, and Jiangchen will be honored. At this moment, everyone cheered. It was also at this moment that the godless continent was completely unified. Heh! Wakako snorted coldly. He didn't want to say much, he just wanted the world to know that the current world was given to them by Jiangchen. The so-called peace was also given to them by Jiangchen. Everything calmed down, and everything seemed to be over. However, everyone knew that in a few years, the real disaster would erupt. Some people seemed to submit to Qianzuan's sect, but they sneered in their hearts. So what if they were unified? In a few years, when the land god returned, would Qianzuan's sect be safe? Boss, can you still come back? Wakako said softly, closed the door of the main hall, and sat under the throne. He was going to go into seclusion, he was going to guard this place until Jiangchen returned. Sigh. I'm trapped here. At the same time, at the edge of the chaos. This place was empty, dark, nothingness, and silent. Jiangchen stood there, expressionless, and gray fog lingered around his body. His consciousness was suppressed in the depths of his soul by the baleful aura, and he couldn't control this body. How should I resolve this baleful aura? If I can't resolve it, will I be like this for the rest of my life? Wait for death? Jiangchen let out a long sigh. His soul floated in the spiritual world, surrounded by gray baleful aura. It was like a cage that he couldn't get out of. Beside him, the thousand-change heavenly torch flickered faintly, and a ray of light enveloped Jiangchen's soul, preserving Jiangchen's last wisp of consciousness and pure soul. Otherwise, Jiangchen's soul would be corroded by the baleful aura. Chapter 648. In the dark spiritual world, only the ever-changing heavenly lamp accompanied Jiangchen. The power of the ever-changing heavenly lamp was extremely powerful, but in the face of the murderous aura, it could only protect a trace of Jiangchen's soul. It could not even take care of the undying bird Tao soul. Looking carefully, one could see that the undying bird Tao soul was in the gray fog, its body burning with flames. But in its origin, a trace of murderous aura had entered and was eroding it. Are you all right? Jiangchen asked through holy awareness. Not good, the undying bird whispered. But for me, it might not be a disaster. Oh? Why? Jiangchen asked curiously. After being eroded by the murderous aura, it was good enough that the undying bird Tao's soul did not die. It might not be a disaster? Could it be a blessing? In a desperate situation, it's not impossible for you to be reborn again, the undying bird said. If you are reborn again, you might be able to use my power to break through the shackles and become a land god. However, when Jiangchen heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. He did not believe it, and even started to worry about himself. The undying bird was his Tao soul and was compatible with his soul. If the undying bird was reborn, Jiangchen would also be reborn. At that time, if the rebirth failed, even Jiangchen would die. Don't act recklessly. If you don't have full confidence, don't talk about rebirth, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. Do I have a choice now? The undying bird curled its lips and mocked. You speak as if you have a choice. Jiangchen was speechless. Just as the undying bird said, he had no choice now. It was already a blessing to be able to maintain this trace of consciousness. He was now trapped in a cage and could not get out at all. Either live or die together. The undying bird sighed. Wait for me. Other than waiting for you, what else can I do? Jiangchen said with a wry smile. At the edge of the chaos, Jiangchen stood alone. The chaos around him was surging like a tide. No one would come here, and no one would dare to come here, much less approach Jiangchen. Of course, no one would be able to find Jiangchen now. Just like that, time slowly passed. Jiangchen was still trapped in the soul cage. As for his physical body, it had always stood at the edge of the primal chaos. As time passed, one day, Jiangchen's body began to tremble. Even his soul began to throb. In the gray soul world, a blue thunderbolt suddenly appeared. Like a flame, it cut through the sky and illuminated a corner of the soul world. This green thunderbolt seemed to be searching for something as it constantly shuttled back and forth within the gray infernal energy. Finally, with a flash of lightning, it broke through the cage and landed on Jiangchen's soul. What? At this moment, Jiangchen cried out in alarm. His voice was filled with endless pain. Because this wasn't green lightning at all. It was clearly a strand of chaotic energy. His physical body stood at the edge of the chaos for many years, causing a strand of chaotic energy to rush into his body. And chaotic energy was not something that ordinary people could control. Even godly kings found it difficult to control. A strand of chaotic energy could destroy a true god. Fortunately, with the protection of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, Jiangchen's soul sank into the wick of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. And that strand of chaotic energy twined around Jiangchen's body like a bone-corroding poisonous bug. The chaotic energy did not have any malice, nor did it have any kindness. It was unconscious. At this moment, this strand of chaotic energy seemed to want to take root in Jiangchen's soul. However, the power emitted by the chaotic energy shook Jiangchen's soul until it flickered continuously. If not for the protection of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, Jiangchen's soul would probably have been annihilated. Kid, if you can pull through, it's equivalent to experiencing a baptism of chaotic energy. Your soul will sublimate, the undying bird said. Do you know how much pain I'm in right now? Jiangchen's face was gloomy. He almost did not even have the strength to speak. After this strand of chaotic energy twined around his soul, Jiangchen felt that his soul was collapsing at every moment, then reforming again, repeating endlessly. This kind of pain far exceeded the pain of the physical body. Jiangchen was about to faint, but how could a soul faint? He could only grit his teeth and bear it silently with a sullen face. Legend has it that before heaven and earth were created, it was a chaotic world, the undying bird said. But one day, a green lotus rose in the chaos. The lotus bloomed with 6 petals, supporting the chaos fog. In the end, heaven and earth became clear, and those 6 lotus flowers also turned into 6 worlds, the undying bird said. Of course, he did not know about this. This was just a kind of inherited memory of his. What's the use of telling me this? Jiangchen said snappily. I'm going crazy. It's too painful. You said, if this strand of chaotic energy takes root in your soul and evolves, if it can give birth to a chaotic green lotus. The undying bird Dao Hun muttered. At that time, your soul world is equivalent to a big world. Your foundation, the origin of everything, is like chaos, invisible, unfathomable, and limitless. Whether I can live or not is a problem, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. His soul almost exploded several times. If not for the protection of the ever-changing heavenly lamp, he would have died long ago. Now, what was the use of the undying bird telling him this? Actually, there was once a supreme being who deduced that if you can control the chaotic energy and give birth to a chaotic green lotus, there will be endless wonders. Perhaps you can create a world, the undying bird said. That's just a deduction, I guess, Jiangchen said. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I'm in pain. Aren't you still alive? The undying bird curled its lips. Hold on, maybe a miracle will happen. Jiangchen did not speak anymore. He was in so much pain. His soul was twisting, sometimes collapsing, sometimes reforming. That strand of chaotic energy seemed to treat Jiang Chen's soul as a world and was creating a new world. Jiang Chen wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He really regretted it. If he had known, he would not have come to the chaotic boundary. Now, the strand of chaotic energy in his soul was simply going to kill him. Time passed slowly, and Jiang Chen was also in a daze. He gradually could withstand the pain, and there was a slight change in his soul. His soul, which was like a ball of light, actually had strands of obscure patterns at this moment. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a green dragon, but also like some kind of plant. It was very strange. Jiang Chen could not be bothered. He felt much better now, at least he did not feel so much pain. However, after an unknown number of days, another strand of primal chaos energy charged into his soul. At this moment, Jiang Chen flew into a rage. He cursed right away. He really wanted to control his body and leave this place. But now, his soul was trapped here and he could not control his body. Damn it! 2 strands of chaotic energy. Can I still hold on? Jiang Chen lamented, feeling that his life was really over. Chapter 649. I've already endured 1, why would I be afraid of 2? The undying bird's voice was very weak because it had been constantly eroded by the baleful aura during this period of time. At this moment, it was preparing to undergo nirvana. I can't bear it! Hurry up and undergo nirvana! Perhaps with the help of your nirvana power, you can dissolve these 2 strands of chaotic energy. Jiang Chen was in great pain. It felt as if his soul was being torn into countless pieces. This kind of pain was simply indescribable with words. Even though Jiang Chen's consciousness was firm, it began to become chaotic at this moment. In a few days I will begin to undergo nirvana. If the nirvana fails, you won't have to suffer the pain of the chaotic energy tearing your soul. The undying bird smiled bitterly and said, At that time, we will turn into ashes together. I'd rather turn into ashes than suffer this. I don't want to suffer this kind of pain. Jiang Chen was furious and resentful, but also very powerless. 2 strands of chaotic energy were enough to destroy a small world. Now, these 2 strands of chaotic energy were on Jiang Chen's soul. It was like a bone-corroding poison that could not be dissolved at all. The pain Jiang Chen suffered was indescribable with words. Jiang Chen had experienced all kinds of storms and waves, all kinds of pain, but facing this kind of pain, as he said, it was better to die. It was too painful. Prepare to undergo nirvana. 3 days later, the undying bird's voice came, and then it fell silent. After a few breaths, a flame rose from the baleful aura. Like a raging fire, it lit up the entire soul world. The vast and mighty gray fog intertwined with the flames. It was impossible to extinguish. At the same time, Jiang Chen's soul also fell into a state of nirvana. He and the undying bird were compatible, so when the undying bird's soul underwent nirvana, he also had to undergo nirvana. And this time, he did not know if he would succeed. The moment his soul entered the state of nirvana, Jiang Chen suddenly felt a sense of relief. At least, he could not feel the pain caused by the 2 strands of chaotic energy. But he did not know that when his soul was in nirvana, these 2 strands of chaotic energy were still circulating on his soul. It was as if they were cleansing Jiang Chen's soul, or as if they were carving some kind of ancient text, or writing a scripture. This was a miraculous thing that had never happened before. Of course, the primal chaos had always been difficult to fathom. No one knew what the primal chaos energy could transform into. The people of the world only knew one thing. When the primal chaos was created, it evolved into a world. Everything was possible. 30 years have passed. After an unknown period of time, the hearts of the living beings on the godless continent began to palpitate. Calculating the time, today seemed to be the last day of the 30-year deadline. That day, there were experts who appeared in this world. They climbed high up and gazed into the distance, looking towards the bloody path's entrance. There were also people who went into hiding, opening up layers of small worlds. They were like cocoons, wrapping themselves up in an attempt to escape this calamity. However, everyone knew that they couldn't avoid this calamity. Unless a land god appeared, no one would be able to stop the land god of the sacred clan once he returned. Jiangchen has disappeared for a very long time. After becoming a great evil, he shouldn't be coming back, right? He's probably lost in the chaos, never to return. Or maybe he's already dead. Some people thought of Jiangchen. Some people even believed that if Jiangchen was still around, there might still be hope for the godless continent. Do you think, if Lin Langwentian is still alive, there's still hope? Someone asked. Lin Langwentian? He's already dead. What else can we say? Placing our hopes on a dead person? Someone said contemptuously. In the end, Jiangchen won. Unfortunately, he disappeared. Boom! Suddenly, the entire godless continent began to shake. Someone saw that in the depths of the endless void, at the edge of the primal chaos, there was a blazing flame soaring into the sky. The blazing flame resonated with the primal chaos. There was even a gray mist that turned into a baleful aura that filled the sky. What is that? Someone exclaimed. Their eyes flashed, but they couldn't see anything in the blazing flame. It was as if the blazing flame had appeared out of thin air, as if it came from the void. There was nothing inside. It looks like the Phoenix clan is undergoing nirvana. Someone frowned. However, in this world, there were very few phoenixes left. Moreover, the Phoenix clan's nirvana couldn't cause such a huge commotion. Moreover, the Phoenix clan was known as an auspicious beast. How could they be tainted by baleful aura? 30 years have passed. At this moment, a familiar and even more fearful voice came from another part of the void. Immediately after, a man stepped out of the void, and the aura of a god filled the air. Where he was, the great Tao was collapsing. Divine light turned into ripples and spread out continuously. Saint Race! He is back! It's over, it's over! The godless continent has really reached its end this time. Everyone wailed and lamented. Their hearts were filled with unwillingness and anger. You are originally a creature of the godless continent. Why do you have to rely on the foreign realm? Jiu Yuan stood beside the land god. This question had troubled him for many years. Because I saw the general trend, the land god of the saint race said. The spirit race will unify the 6 realms sooner or later. I'm just taking advantage of the situation. At this point, the land god of the saint race stared at Jiu Yuan and said, I promise you the 30 years. Now you should also keep your promise and not interfere in this matter. Of course. Jiu Yuan nodded. Everything in the world is predestined. There is fate, heaven's will, and Tao's will. The fate of the godless continent might have reached its end. It has begun. The land god of the saint race said softly. His figure flashed and appeared above the abyss. He was going to unlock the seal and open the door of darkness. Have you asked for my permission? At this moment, a figure rushed over from afar. 72 lotuses bloomed. When the voice fell, 72 kinds of divine abilities were like a rainbow bridge, drowning the land god of the saint race. Immediately afterward, a cold, pitch-black light tore through the void and shot toward the glabella of the land god. It's Nian Chang'e. That's Mu Xingyun. Many people exclaimed. They didn't expect these 2 people to stand out at this time. But soon they were disappointed. This was because Nian Chang'e and Mu Xingyun's cultivation were only above the demigod realm. After all, those above the demigod realm were not true gods. Alright, use your blood as a sacrifice to this door of darkness. The land god of the saint race said. With a shake of his body, the rainbow bridge formed by the 72 kinds of divine abilities was shattered by him. At the same time, the pitch-black cold light was also severed by him with a flick of his finger. How should we fight this battle? Mu Xingyun stood beside Nian Chang'e with a strange expression. He muttered, Should we ascend? If you want to ascend, why wait until now? Nian Chang'e said in annoyance. He knew very well that although Mu Xingyun and Jiangchen were mortal enemies, Mu Xingyun had a righteous heart. Otherwise, with Mu Xingyun's cultivation, he would have ascended to the divine realm long ago. Chapter 650. He had to avenge his life and death. However, Mu Xingyun had his own principles when it came to handling matters. Just like what he had said when he had saved Jiangchen had to die in his hands. And he had to kill Jiangchen in a one-on-one fight. This was his recognition of Jiangchen's strength, and it was also a kind of respect for his opponent. Now, in this chaotic and prosperous world, he could have safely ascended and left without interfering in the matters of the godless continent. He could have become a god. However, he had stayed behind. Perhaps this was Mu Xingyun. Listen to me in this battle, Nian Chang'e said in a deep voice. I have a magical power that can temporarily fuse the cultivation of two people. Oh? After I fuse with your cultivation, can I fight with the land god? Mu Xingyun asked. As soon as he said this, Nian Chang'e chuckled and didn't reply. It was because they both knew that the combination of two demigods wasn't a case of 1 + 1 = 2. As for the land god, he wasn't the so-called two. Even if the two of them joined forces, they might not be a match for this land god. But now, this was the only way to have a glimmer of hope. Then, I'll leave it to you. I'll go to the Chuanzun sect. Mu Xingyun smiled, looking relaxed, and a trace of emotion flashed in his eyes. He said softly, I've been his enemy for so long, but I haven't entered his sect yet. Sit down, Nian Chang'e said. Later, either you come and collect my corpse, or you die with me. Hell, what's there to be afraid of? Mu Xingyun raised his eyebrows. It's just that if he's not in this world, I'll be a little lonely. Just 2 ants, and you want to stop a god? The land god of the Holy Clan looked contemptuous. Divine light danced on his body, and then he took a step forward. It was as if a true god had descended to the world. Under his foot, the great Tao was collapsing. He stretched out his palm like an oven. When his 5 fingers closed, it seemed to suppress the universe. Boom! At this moment, the 72 lotuses bloomed with multicolored light. A strand of divine light flowed out from Nian Chang'e's body and entered Mu Xingyun's body. In the blink of an eye, Mu Xingyun's face turned pale. He felt as if his cultivation had been seized. He stumbled into Chuanzun's sect and sat down at the entrance of the main hall. He looked up at Nian Chang'e and sighed. I've given you my cultivation. The rest is up to you. I am Chang'en. At this moment, Nian Chang'e's aura skyrocketed, and his cultivation strength was almost on par with the land gods. He didn't use any martial arts techniques. His hands danced and formed fist seals, and 2 fists as bright as the sun blasted out. Boom! After several explosive sounds, fist radiance erupted. It was as if the great sun was collapsing, burning the sky red. Even the void was collapsing, and there seemed to be a sorrowful cry coming from the great Tao. Interesting, the land god of the Saint clan said softly, but he didn't conceal the contempt at all. So what if he was infinitely close to becoming a land god? It wasn't real after all. Chang'en, right? Taoist Tongtian's disciple, right? Once in this world there was a time when you could say what you wanted, right? The land god of the Saint clan said mockingly. It's a pity that your time is long gone. So what? There's still me in this world. Nian Chang'e roared, waved his fists, and rushed out again. At this moment, the land god's eyes narrowed slightly. Facing Nian Chang'e, who was infinitely close to becoming a land god, he didn't dare to be careless. However, after a few exchanges, he saw Nian Chang'e flying backward. Cracks appeared on his body, and even the space between his eyebrows cracked. The 72 lotuses bloomed, but there were cracks, and the divine light on them was not as strong as before. Alas! I can't beat him in the end. Mu Xingyun lay on his back at the entrance of Chuanzun's sect's main hall with a wry smile. He touched his chest and asked himself, if I don't become a god, is it worth it to stay and fight for the righteousness in my heart? Do I regret it? Of course not. Wakako also sat there and said, If you regret it, if you feel that it's not worth it, you won't choose to stay. Heh. Mu Xingyun snorted coldly, glanced at Wakako with a strange expression, and said, Your boss and I are old enemies. Now that I'm in this state, why don't you take action and get rid of me? That's between you and my boss. Wakako shook his head. His enemies don't need us to take action. Your boss is really lucky to have so many people helping him. Mu Xingyun whispered. Sometimes I also think that if one day I have someone like you who is willing to follow me, maybe I can create a period of glory. For example? Wakako asked, and then smiled bitterly. We're all waiting for death. Let's chat before we die. For example, I want to create an assassin dynasty. Walk in the darkness and be the ruler of the darkness. I want the world to be filled with light and darkness. Hearing Mu Xingyun's words, Wakako didn't say anything. Because he knew that Mu Xingyun's dream might not be realized. Because Nian Chang'e was about to be defeated. Looking around, Nian Chang'e's physical body had been blown up, leaving only a soul burning in the air. This injury was too serious, and her soul was like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. Come back! Wakako exclaimed, and his body emitted a domineering aura. Like a rainbow, he rushed toward Nian Chang'e. He couldn't watch Nian Chang'e die in battle. However, facing a god on land, no matter how fast Wakako was, he couldn't be faster than a god on land. At this moment, everything seemed to be frozen. Nian Chang'e's soul stood in place, and a palm-emitting divine light rushed toward her soul. Wakako's eyes narrowed. He was very fast, but it was still not enough. Master, I can't be filial to you in the future. Nian Chang'e sighed. Things had come to this point, and death was acceptable. The only thing she couldn't accept was that he hadn't returned yet. Back then, the two of them had been apprenticed to Taoist Heavenly. One of them had achieved the name of Chang'an, while the other had stepped into the cycle of reincarnation because of some things. In fact, Nian Chang'e also knew that in terms of seniority, Jiang Chen's first life was enough to be on par with Taoist Heavenly, or even stronger. But in Nian Chang'e's heart, Jiang Chen would always be her senior brother. But now, she was about to die, but she still couldn't see Jiang Chen return, nor could she see Jiang Chen for the last time. It was really a bit sad. Try to touch him. All of a sudden, a light voice drifted over. Then, a flame rushed from the void, extremely fast, and disappeared in a flash. Looking carefully, it was actually an immortal bird. It flapped its wings and swept away Nian Chang'e's soul. Then, the immortal bird exploded, turning into a sky full of flames and divine light. In the midst of the divine light and flames, a young man seemed to be returning from the endless flames of the void. Chapter 651. His body was blurry as if it was made up of flames. Vaguely, one could see 3 wisps of chaotic aura lingering around his body. This scene was too strange. He looked like a creature from the chaos. A wave of pressure filled the air as if the heavens were floating under his feet. It was as if the mysterious chaos belonged to him. Who are you? The land god of the holy race's expression changed drastically. He finally felt a trace of pressure. However, he was also very puzzled. Who was the person in the flames? Why was he able to give him such great pressure even though his cultivation was not at the land god level? Me? The young man in the flames said softly. After a pause, he said loudly. Jianzuan sect leader, Jiang Chen. What? Jiang Chen? Boss? In an instant, several exclamations sounded. Some were surprised, some were shocked, and most of them were in disbelief. After the battle with Lin Langwentian, Jiang Chen had not appeared. He entered the chaos and became a great evil. He probably would not come out again in this life. But who would have thought that Jiang Chen would come back? He was burning with flames and surrounded by chaos. His aura was accompanied by a murderous aura. He was like a demon god who created the world. It's time for this era to end, Jiang Chen said softly. His aura became more violent, but his body still did not solidify. "You're transforming? Undergoing nirvana?" The land god of the holy race frowned and said coldly, "You dare to come out when you haven't completed nirvana? You're courting death." As soon as he finished speaking, he punched out. The runes on his fist flickered as if countless suns were gathering. With a single punch, the void exploded, and flowers of divine light bloomed one after another. The fist was vast and mighty, piercing through the sky. Its speed was so fast that no one could react in time. However, such a dreadful punch was shattered into nothingness by Jiangchen as soon as he raised his hand and waved it. "If you run away now, you still have a chance to live," Jiangchen said softly. He stood in the flames and did not take the initiative to attack. This was because, as the land god said, he was still in nirvana. However, he had already reached the final stage of nirvana. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to come out. Once nirvana succeeded, Jiang Chen's cultivation would definitely skyrocket. At that time, it was even possible for him to step into the ranks of the gods of the land. Escape? I am a land god of the divine race, why should I run? The saint race man angrily rebuked. He glared at Jiang Chen and coldly said, "You haven't even successfully undergone nirvana and yet you dare to come out and block me. You really don't know what death is." Heh! Jiang Chen snorted, and a violent baleful aura erupted. Then, he said disdainfully, "I can't do anything now, so you're still alive. The moment I make my move, you'll be a corpse." What a joke. The land god of the saint race angrily roared. His hands continuously formed seals, and a broken spear appeared out of thin air. The void collapsed beneath the spear, and the power of the Grand Tao trembled beneath the spear, turning it into nothingness. Then, the long spear hung upside down in the sky. With divine power, it pressed down on Jiang Chen. "Boss! Let's go! Let's go! You haven't successfully undergone nirvana, don't be rash!" Wakako, Nian Changa, and the others exclaimed. They could feel the terrifying power coming from the spear, which was enough to destroy a part of the world. That was a secret technique, and its power was so great that it was definitely not something that a mortal could resist. "Rebirth from the ashes, everything about me has come back to life," Jiang Chen whispered. Although he was still standing in the same place, his body shook, and a purple-gold radiance erupted. Within the radiance, a towering vine grew out, and in a few breaths, it reached the sky and stepped on the ground. The vines were like purple-gold sharp swords, piercing through the void and rushing upward. Emperor's vine? This Tao soul. Wasn't it destroyed by you? Many people were stunned. Everyone knew that Jiang Chen had 3 Tao souls, which were the myriad change heavenly lamp, the undying bird, and the Emperor's vine. The myriad change heavenly lamp had always been there, and the undying bird had undergone nirvana after death, but the Emperor's vine... Everything has undergone nirvana, Jiang Chen whispered. His eyes shone brightly, and there seemed to be a universe floating in the depths of his eyes. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the Emperor's vine rushed upward and wrapped around the long spear. Then, the vine shook like a dragon's body and suddenly rolled down, crushing the entire long spear. Sect leader Quan Zun. Could it be, there's still hope for the godless continent? He's back. Many people in the world were paying attention to this battle. When Yen Changa was defeated, everyone thought that the godless continent was going to end. But now they saw hope. 3,000 years ago, Jiang Qin unified the godless continent and created endless glory. 3,000 years later Is he going to do it again? Someone exclaimed and sighed with emotion. What kind of power and character was this? After 3,000 years, was the glory about to return? There's still 30 breaths of time. After 30 breaths, if you're still in front of me, your life will be gone. Jiang Qin whispered. The Emperor's vine stood behind him, and the undying bird stopped on the Emperor's vine. Above his head, the myriad change heavenly lamp burned leisurely, and there was a sword ray brewing. The most frightening thing was that there were 3 streaks of chaotic energy faintly flickering between Jiang Chen's eyebrows. The streaks of chaotic energy did not leak out at all, but they crushed the space around Jiangqin. "I'm a god of the land!" the man from the sacred clan roared. He did not believe that Jiangqin could really go against the heavens and punish the gods. He continued to attack, forming fist seals, palm seals, and several secret techniques. For a moment, the place was in a frenzy. Terrifying energy covered everything, and this part of the world lost its color. However, after 10 breaths of time, when everything calmed down, Jiangqin was still standing in the same place. However, the flames on his body had disappeared by quite a bit, and the murderous aura was also gradually dissipating. However, his body was becoming more and more solid. He was about to succeed in his nirvana. At this moment, the sacred clan's god of the land began to panic. Jiangqin had not made a move yet, but he already had such power. After he succeeded in his nirvana, how terrifying would he be? "Jiangqin! The destruction of the godless continent is only a matter of time. You can't change it!" The sacred clan's god of the land roared, but he was also constantly retreating. Moreover, his divine power was so great that it pierced through the sky. He was about to ascend. He was really afraid, and he did not want to die here. 20 breaths of time have passed. Only 10 breaths of time left. Jiangqin whispered. "Can you succeed in ascending within 10 breaths of time? If not, take advantage of this moment to repent and look at the mountains and rivers. After all, this is your home. You can't stop me!" The sacred clan's god of the land roared. A divine light channel had appeared, and he was about to ascend. However, 10 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the flames on Jiangqin's body disappeared, and everything returned to calmness. His body was completely solid, and a holy light descended from the sky. In the sky, auspicious signs appeared, and golden lotuses were everywhere. There was also the sound of ethereal Sanskrit chanting, and an ancient horn sounded. A divine aura slowly spread out from Jiangqin's body. "A god of the land!" Chapter 652. After countless twists and turns, after experiencing suffering and pain, he was reborn from the flames and chaos and finally became a land god. At this moment, Jiangqin returned from the flames. 3 wisps of chaos energy lingered around his body, like 3 flowers converging above his head. His tall and straight figure, his eyes as deep as the starry sky, and his hair fluttering in the wind, he looked like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. Then, Jiangqin stretched out his palm. Flames surged in his palm, and wisps of chaos mist filled the air. Wherever his palm passed, the void collapsed, and the great Tao trembled. Chains of laws appeared in his palm. Seeing this, the land god's eyes darkened. The blood essence within his body burned, and great Tao runes appeared one after another. He didn't choose to escape because he knew that both sides were land gods. Either of them could escape. Even if they escaped to the ends of the world, they could still find each other. Now, he could only fight to the death. "Jiangqin! Why do you have to go against me? The world is so big, what can't you get? Why do you have to go against me?" The land god roared. He couldn't figure it out. With Jiangqin's strength, the world could be given to him. If the two of them joined forces and opened the door of darkness, the world could be divided equally. Together, they could rule this world. "I'm not like you," Jiangqin whispered. "As a creature of the godless continent, you chose to betray the godless continent for the so-called glory and the so-called general trend. You don't even want your own home." Jiangqin sighed. "Turn back. Turn back. How can I turn back? From the moment I betrayed the godless continent, there was no turning back," the land god said solemnly. "Since ancient times, the winner is king and the loser is a bandit. Everything the winner does is right, and everything the loser does is wrong. If I win today, then what I've done is right. If I lose, everything will vanish, and my reputation will be passed down through the ages." Hearing this, Jiangqin slowly shook his head. He really couldn't understand the thoughts of the land gods of the holy race, but Jiangchen knew what he was thinking. That's right, this world isn't a beautiful place. It's filled with hatred, war, and evil people. However, this world was also so beautiful. There was love, affection, and the boundless mountains and rivers as well as living beings. Whether it was good or bad, sometimes it didn't matter. What's important is what you think of what you see. Grudges could be settled, but they could also be set aside. Karma could be formed, but it could also be dissolved. Everything depended on himself. Since you've decided, let's fight, Jiangchen said softly. His palm didn't stop moving. At this moment, it had already arrived in front of the land god of the Saint clan. You and I are both land deities. Let's decide the victor with a single strike, the land deity of the Saint race said in a deep voice. He and Jiangchen both knew that under the same realm, there was no need for too many fancy moves. It was an all-out attack. If he could win, he would win. If he couldn't block it, he would lose. You have no way out, Jiangchen said softly. The Saint clan is going to end. I don't believe it. The land god roared, and the great Tao runes in his body burned. The berserk divine power transformed into divine light that swirled in the air, converging into a shiny spear that was covered in cryptic runes. In an instant, the vitality in the surroundings gathered, and the power of the great Tao flowed like water, supporting the spear. The next moment, the land god of the Saint clan raised his hand and held the spear. Then, he fiercely raised it toward Jiangchen's palm. Hand like the heavens, suppressing all things, Jiangchen said softly. His divine power surged. The Emperor's vine and the undying bird seemed to have turned into imprints that floated in his palm. At the same time, a cold light burst out from the myriad change heavenly lamp. Like a swimming dragon, it appeared in Jiangchen's palm. Finally, a desolate sword intent burst out and formed in Jiangchen's 5 fingers. At this moment, all of his methods were used. Hand like the heavens? Then today, I shall pierce through this layer of heavens. The land god of the Saint clan roared. In the end, the spear collided with Jiangchen's palm. Boom! Under a series of terrifying explosions, Jiangchen's palm slowly fell without any signs of stopping. The sword light, runes, and imprints in his palm were constantly shattered, but they reappeared in the inextinguishable flame. It was as if the power of this palm was endless and indestructible. Just like this, the two were in a stalemate. After more than 10 breaths, a few crisp sounds came from the spear. Following that, cracks began to appear on the originally shiny spear. Sigh. At this moment, the land god of the Saint clan let out a sigh. He knew that he had lost. He had used all his methods and used all his strength, but in the end, he was still defeated. Of course, before the battle began, he already knew the result. Jiangchen's cultivation had been achieved through his own practice. It had been achieved through nirvana. It was his own cultivation. As for him, he only obtained his cultivation after a blood sacrifice. This was an external force that wasn't suitable for him to begin with, and he couldn't fully exert this power. Defeat, in fact, was destined the moment Jiangchen succeeded in his nirvana. It's over. The era of the Saint clan has finally come to an end. The land god of the Saint clan sighed. In the end, they still came to this point. Victory was clearly in front of them, and they were only one step away. Perhaps it's because you met me, Jiangchen whispered. Destiny. Heaven's mandate? The land god's voice suddenly turned cold and full of contempt. He stared at Jiangchen as his body slowly disintegrated under Jiangchen's palm. He was about to die. However, he didn't believe in destiny. Do you believe in destiny? The land god raised his eyebrows. You don't believe in destiny either, right? No cultivator believes in destiny. If they did, there wouldn't be any cultivators in this world. Besides, you will never know how powerful the other realm is. 5 of the 6 realms have been destroyed. The last one, the God world, will be destroyed sooner or later. I don't need to know so much. I will know when the time comes, Jiangchen said softly, but he was still afraid of the other realm. What kind of world was it? Why was it so powerful that it could destroy the 5 realms? How powerful were the creatures there? Do you know why Taoist Heavenspan didn't make a move? Do you know why the human sovereign is hiding in the 3rd mountain? Do you know why the lords of the 4 abyss are reincarnated? Do you know the identity of the 9 abyss? You don't know. What you see is just the surface. The land god of the Saint clan knew that he was going to die, and he seemed to be venting and complaining. Jiangchen listened silently, but didn't say a word. He knew some things, but he would never say them out loud. Because when the time came, he would know what he needed to know. It's over. Leave with the sins of your life, Jiangchen whispered, and his palm finally fell. Bang! With a muffled sound, the sky of the godless continent shook, and a divine night soared into the clouds. A rain of blood fell from the sky, and the great Tao shook. The land god died, and the phenomenon of heaven's wail appeared. Glory, darkness, sin, blood, everything came to an end. From now on, there were no more saints on the godless continent. Chapter 653. A period of glory and a period of sin had finally come to an end. The living beings of the godless continent were excited, and some even cried. This calamity was finally over. At this moment, many people looked up at the sky and looked at the man standing in the air. Their hearts were filled with gratitude and emotion. The divine king of a generation, reincarnated, rose again after 3,000 years and quelled the chaos. At this point, the world respected one person, the Qianzuan sect leader Jiangchen. The godless continent will not be in danger for the time being. The glorious era has truly begun. At this moment, Jiangchen stood in the air, the inextinguishable fire burning on his body, and 3 wisps of chaotic aura gathered above his head. He was like a god. His voice was not loud, and there was no emotion, but it gave people a sense of majesty. It was as if he was a natural-born emperor. Everyone come! In the end, Jiangchen disappeared after saying this. He returned to the Qianzuan sect and used his own blood essence to heal Nianchanga. At the same time, the Qianzuan sect reappeared. Someone used great magic to open a new mountain gate in a short period of time and rebuild the sect-protecting formation. From now on, the name of the barren state should be changed, someone said softly. The reason why the barren state was called the barren state was because this place was barren and desolate. However, from today onwards the word barren was no longer suitable for the barren state. 3,000 years ago, the barren state's Qianzuan sect unified the godless continent. 3,000 years later, it was still the barren state, still the Qianzuan sect, and still the godless continent. Jiang state, someone suggested. After the sacred clan's actions, all the major states have changed. The region of the godless continent should also be redefined. Jiang state? With Jiang Chen's surname and the name of a state, good! Time passed slowly. No one knew when, but the barren state had completely changed in the mouths of the people. It had been changed to Jiang state. During this period of time, the Qianzuan sect was also bustling with people coming and going. All the sects, families, and masters of inherited forces in the world constantly came to the Qianzuan sect to kneel, pay their respects, and offer tributes. This was a true gathering of people from all sides. Jiangchen did not care about this. After he healed Nianchanga, he went to where Mu Yude was cultivating in seclusion. The place where Mu Yude was cultivating in seclusion was pitch black and filled with underworld qi. This place was like a small version of hell. Mu Yude was surrounded by an aura of death. He looked like he was half dead. It was difficult for him to even speak. His injuries were too severe. How is it? Jiangchen asked. I won't die, but I won't live either. Mu Yude sighed. I was severely injured in that battle, and I had to expend a large amount of my origin energy in order to protect the entire sect. It's already fortunate that I'm still alive. How long will it take to recover? Jiangchen frowned. What? What's up? Mu Yude was stunned. In this world, Jiang Chun was the most powerful person. If he had something to do, he could do it himself. How many living beings in this world would dare to stop him? I want to go to the Eternal City, Jiang Chun said. The Qing Kong tribe is in the Eternal City, and so is the Zhongzhou dynasty. I have some old friends who should go and visit them. Oh? That's all? Mu Yude said, but he did not believe Jiang Chun. Because Mu Yude knew what the Eternal City meant to Jiang Chun. That's all. Jiang Chun nodded. His expression was calm, without a trace of emotion. However, Mu Yude smiled and stared into Jiang Chun's eyes. After a long time, he slowly opened his mouth and asked, Did you get back some of your memories after merging the Heaven's Origin and Heaven's Xian bodies? Ha, you scoundrel Taoist! It seems that I can't hide it from you. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly and said helplessly, I'm going to see where I used to be and take something back. That's right. You left something in the Eternal City. Mu Yude nodded. He knew what Jiang Chun was going to take. It was something that everyone in the world called a treasure. It was a scripture, a cultivation technique. At a certain time, it was called a supreme cultivation technique. Everyone in the world wanted to cultivate it. Back then, when Jiang Chun was the profound sky divine king, he left the cultivation technique in the Eternal City, waiting for the fated people to cultivate it. However, it was not clear whether the cultivation technique was still in the Eternal City, or whether it had been taken by someone else. That cultivation technique is very important to me, Jiang Chun said in a low voice. But I can't remember it, so I can only go and take it back. But I can't move now, Mu Yude said. Look, I'm about to die. Can this be saved? Jiang Chun whispered. The inextinguishable flame burned, and at the same time, the essence blood in his body dripped down. The two merged and turned into a pill. This was a pill made by burning one's essence blood with the inextinguishable flame and adding the origin energy. This pill was unique in the world. This is not a good idea? Mu Yude had a strange expression. He said awkwardly, You want to use your essence blood and origin energy to heal me? That's too harmful for you. Don't worry. I have a divine body, and my recovery ability is amazing. A little origin energy and essence blood is nothing to me. Jiang Chun waved his hand, not caring at all. Mu Yude did not hold back after hearing that. Then, something happened that made Jiang Chun depressed and even mad. For 3 days in a row, Mu Yude consumed 50% of Jiang Chun's origin energy and essence blood. Even though Jiang Chun's recovery ability was amazing, he was now like a half-crippled person, lying weakly beside Mu Yude. On the other hand, Mu Yude, who used to be a dying man, was now full of energy. Do you have more? At this moment, Mu Yude stared at Jiang Chun with a sneaky expression and could not help but lick his lips. Your King healed, and you still want my origin energy and essence blood? Jiang Chun's face darkened. This bastard Taoist priest was such a scammer. Are you King addicted to my origin energy and blood essence? Do you want to eat this? I'll give it to you. Jiang Chun was about to explode with anger. He waved his hand, and the 3 strands of chaotic qi appeared in his palm. Mu Yude's expression changed drastically when he saw the chaotic qi. He exclaimed, Chaotic qi? You've mastered this thing? Not really, Jiang Chun said. When I became a great evil, my physical body stopped at the edge of the chaotic realm. Over time, some chaotic qi entered my soul. After I was reborn, these 3 strands of chaotic qi existed, Jiang Chun said. Of course, Jiang Chun did not tell Mu Yude that these 3 strands of chaotic qi had caused his soul to be covered in obscure runes. They were like ancient scriptures that originated from the chaotic realm. They had also caused Jiang Chun's soul to be shrouded in an unknown aura. Unfortunately, these runes were very obscure. Jiang Chun could not understand them. Just like the true meaning of the Great Tao, he had to figure it out and comprehend it. As for the unknown aura, Jiang Chun had no idea what it was. He only knew that with the presence of the aura, He could conceal his aura and even fool the senses of heaven and earth. Chapter 654. Chaos is the most mysterious and terrifying thing in history, Mulyud said in a deep voice. This thing. I advise you not to touch it. It's best if you can get rid of it from your body. Why? Jiangchen was shocked. He felt that the 3 strands of chaotic qi had brought him many benefits. His soul, in particular, seemed to have evolved. There's an ancient rumor that the chaotic qi is actually a strand of power leaked out from a living being, Mulyud said. That living being has no records. It's as if it has never appeared before, but Mulyud shook his head, indicating that it was just a rumor. In short, if there's really a living being that can produce chaotic qi, then its existence must be the root of all karma in the world, Mulyud said. This kind of karma is not small. Even a divine king cannot bear it. I advise you to find a way to get rid of the chaotic qi in your body. Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Jiangchen smiled bitterly. The 3 strands of chaotic qi seemed to have taken root in his soul. They also seemed to have merged with his soul. If he wanted to get rid of the 3 strands of chaotic qi, he would have to tear apart Jiangchen's soul. If his soul was torn apart, Jiangchen would die. Be careful. If there's anything wrong with the 3 strands of chaotic qi, tell me immediately, Mulyud warned him. Don't touch them. Since ancient times, chaos has been supreme. Isn't it good to control the chaotic qi? Jiangchen asked. No, Mulyud rejected decisively. There are some things you can't touch. We'll see, Jiangchen said softly. He waved his hand, indicating that he wanted to rest. In the past few days he had used too much blood essence and origin energy to heal Mulyud. Although he had a divine body, he could not bear it. You've recovered? Half a day later, Nian Chang'e was surprised to see Mulyud full of energy in the hall. Mulyud couldn't help licking his lips. He smiled and said, Yes, I ate a few pills. Oh? What kind of medicinal pill can cure you with just a few? Nian Chang'e looked confused. He knew how serious Mulyud's injuries were. Even a miracle pill wouldn't be able to heal him. Even if it could be cured, it couldn't be done so quickly. Let's not talk about this for now. Mulyud had a strange expression on his face. How could he tell Nian Chang'e that he had only recovered after eating Jiangchen's origin energy and blood essence? If Nian Chang'e knew about it, the 72 lotuses of this guy would probably bloom again. Jiangchen and I are going to the Eternal City. Are you coming? Mulyud asked. His expression suddenly became serious. As soon as he said this, Nian Chang'e's expression changed. He frowned. After thinking for a while, he asked, He's going? Yes. Mulyud nodded. He recovered some of his past memories. Now, he's going to the Eternal City to retrieve that technique. Can you get it back? Nian Chang'e asked. One had to know that the technique had been left in the Eternal City for countless years, and it was unknown who was in possession of it now. Even if that cultivation technique belonged to Jiangchen, it was unlikely that someone would return it to him. After all, it was a supreme cultivation technique. If he wants to go, then let him go, Mulyud said. Some things can't be hidden. He still has to go. Moreover, I told him that there's a path under the Wangchuan River that leads to the Eternal City. Even if I don't go with him, he'll go himself. Hearing this, Nian Chang'e couldn't help but glare at Mulyud. He said in a low voice, You have such a big mouth. How can you say such things? If the world finds out, this will be a big deal. What's there to be afraid of? How many people dare to go under the Wangchuan River? Mulyud said angrily. Without the power of a demigod, going under the Wangchuan River is suicide. Then, you've decided to go with him? Nian Chang'e asked. What about you? Mulyud asked. Then let's go together. Nian Chang'e sighed and pointed at the top of his head. He said, He can't ascend normally. After all, there are great enemies waiting for him in the 9th heaven divine realm. If he ascends normally, he'll be discovered and killed in less than 3 breaths. Therefore, he has to go to the Eternal City. He can only ascend through the Eternal City. Muyuda nodded. At this point, the matter was finally decided. However, Nyan Changa's expression became a little strange. He waved his hand and hundreds of red booklets fell in front of Muyuda. Upon closer inspection, they were all here to propose marriage. Who are they for? Muyuda was also stunned. Hundreds of marriage proposals? Who in the Qianzuan sect was so popular? Muyuda touched his cheek and muttered. Could it be me? Cough, cough. Do you have any shame? Nyan Changa said angrily. These are for Jiangchun. All the leaders of the major sects and families want to marry into the Qianzuan sect. Nyan Changa said. I don't know if I should refuse. What if he takes a fancy to a girl? Don't refuse. If he doesn't like her, I'll do it. Muyuda said hurriedly. There are hundreds of marriage proposals. He can't accept all of them, right? He can leave a few out and give them to me. You. Appearance? Nyan Changa pursed his lips. Muyuda, this bastard Taoist, had a lot of ideas. What? The underworld is gone, and you want to give birth to a bunch of descendants of the underworld outside? What's more, why don't you take a look at your looks, you bastard? This can't be made public. If his female disciples find out, I'm afraid there will be chaos. Nyan Changa said. Let's just pretend nothing happened. Oh no! A wedding procession is coming to the Qianzuan sect? Suddenly, someone rushed into the main hall. It was the disciple who was sweeping the square of the Qianzuan sect. He pointed outside in a panic and said, The procession is powerful. All of them are at the heavenly human level. They even threatened to make Jiangchun responsible. Huh? What? Nyan Changa and Muyuda were dumbfounded. What was going on? Responsible? Come on, Jiangchun had been healing Muyuda all this time. He hadn't gone out at all. Since he hadn't gone out, he couldn't be fooling around, right? Since he couldn't be fooling around, how could he be responsible? Let's go and see. Muyuda muttered. I really couldn't tell. Jiangchun is quite sly. When did he fool around outside? Shut up. He's not that kind of person, Nyan Changa said in a low voice. Then, the two of them arrived at the gate of the Qianzuan sect. When they saw the wedding procession outside the gate, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. At a glance, the lineup of the bridal procession was extremely powerful. There were 13 celestial tier powerhouses, and one of them had recently obtained a fortuitous opportunity to become a demigod. Chapter 655. A viper pulled the carriage, a real phoenix guarded the array, and an auspicious Qilin walked in the front to clear the way. This posture. Were they really here to escort the bride? Greetings, Lord Chang'an and Taoist Muyud. At this moment, the leader was very polite. He walked up and bowed. Then, he said with a smile, We are from Qiyu Mansion, a faction that was established recently. Oh, Nyan Changa said softly. Then she pointed at the big red bridal sedan and asked, Who is this? The bride in the bridal sedan is the beloved daughter of the Qiyu Mansion's mansion master. We're here to accept sect master Jiang Chen's invitation to enter the mansion and form a marriage alliance. The man said with a hearty laugh. I didn't expect that our Qiyu Mansion could establish ties with the Qianzuan sect. It's really our fortune and fortune. Wait. Muyud was dumbfounded. He covered his forehead and thought for a while. Then he asked, Are you sure it's Jiangchun? Of course. The man was sure. He even took out a portrait. Wasn't the person in the portrait Jiangchun was painted on? At this moment, Nyan Changa and Muyud were dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. What's going on? Did Jiangchun really go out to flirt with other women? This guy started flirting with other women after his female disciples left? The corner of Nyan Changa's mouth twitched. She seemed to have seen the furious scene of Bai Fing Yu and the others in the ninth heaven divine realm. Mu Yud was also stunned. He stared at the portrait and didn't know what to say. Damn you! You made me take the blame for your own trouble? Bool Shasterisk T. If you didn't instigate me, I wouldn't have done this. Suddenly, a few curses came from afar. Looking around, they saw a dragon, a phoenix, and a vermilion bird coming from 1,000 miles away from the Chuanzuan sect. Huh! 3 virtuous beings? Where did these 3 fellows go before this? Why are they back now? Nian Changa and Mu Yud were stunned. These 3 clowns were always causing trouble. Moreover, according to the 3 virtuous beings, the bridal escort team, could it be? Oh, Nian Changa, you're here too! At this moment, Huang Dade came to the entrance in his human form. He patted Nian Changa's shoulder and asked, Where's the boss? Seclusion. Nian Changa had a strange expression on her face. She pulled Huang Dade to the side and asked softly, This wedding procession. What did you guys do? It's not me. It's Long Dade. Huang Dade hurriedly shook his head and said, He said that the dragon race is weak and wants to do something for the dragon race. He wants to, carry on the family line, and then? Nian Changa's face was dark. She gnashed her teeth and asked, Then he pretended to be Jiang Chun and went out to cause trouble for girls. No! There was absolutely no disaster. I didn't even touch her hand. Huang Dade hurriedly said, We just wanted to give ourselves some face. That's why we borrowed your name. Originally it was just a joke, but who would have thought that Chi Yu Fu would take it seriously? At this point, Nian Changa was completely speechless. He forced a smile and waved at Long Dade, who was not far away. Come here. Uncle wants to talk to you. What are you talking about? Uncle? I'm the ancestor true dragon. Talk to me respectfully. Long Dade was as arrogant as ever. He raised his chin and strode slowly to Nian Changa's side. Who told you to cause trouble? At this moment, Nian Changa exploded. With that, 72 lotuses bloomed in his palms, and a series of spells poured out, directly suppressing Long Dade. This scene left the people of Chi La Fu dumbfounded. What's going on? What's going on with these 3 divine beasts? It's none of my business. It's really none of my business. I haven't seen the boss in a long time. I'll go find him. Bird Bade saw this and shuddered. He quickly ran into the sect. Then, Huang Dade also ran away. He did not dare to stay here. Let me go! I'm the ancestor true dragon born from heaven and earth. How dare you treat me like this? Even that kid Jiang Chun wouldn't dare to do this. Long Dade roared. However, he was suppressed on the ground and could only move his mouth. Oh? That kid Jiang Chun? Are you talking about me? Suddenly, a playful and light voice rang out. Then, Jiang Chun clenched his fists and moved to Long Dade's side. As if he was carrying a chicken, Jiang Chun picked up Long Dade and stared into his eyes. Is this true? Aya. Isn't this the Tian Chen Divine King who accompanied me when I was born? What a coincidence, why are you here too? Long time no see, I've missed you. Long Dade's demeanor changed. He licked his lips and smiled. Boss, put me down first. So many people are watching. How embarrassing. Cough cough. You guys. This? What's going on? The man from Chi Yu Fu was confused. We're here to propose marriage. Why aren't we even allowed to enter? Also, why are you guys suppressing each other? Are the games these days so big? Explain yourself! Jiang Chun was too lazy to say more. He directly threw Long Dade in front of the man from Chi Yu Fu. Long Dade felt guilty and naturally wanted to run away. However, when he saw Jiang Chun and Nian Changa's dark expressions, he couldn't help but shudder. Then, he explained the cause of the matter. Well, everyone, this is a misunderstanding. After explaining, Jiang Chun naturally had to smooth things over. Otherwise, Chi Yu Fu would lose face. Surprisingly, after hearing Long Dade's explanation, the man from Chi Yu Fu was not angry. Instead, he was overjoyed. "This is God's will!" the man shouted. He held Long Dade's dragon claw and said excitedly, "Since you did this, then my young lady will be betrothed to you. Is that okay?" What? What the F***ck? Am I hallucinating because I've consumed too much of my origin energy and blood essence? Jiang Chun and the others were dumbfounded. This is not the right plot. To be honest, my Chiyu Fu has dragon blood in our bodies. Unfortunately, the dragon blood in our bodies is very thin now. The man said, "The direct descendants of Chiyu Fu are the dragon men. We have always thought that we are the descendants of the true dragon. It's a pity that the dragon blood in our bodies is about to disappear." The man said, "I didn't expect that at the last moment we would meet the ancestor of the true dragon. The heavens didn't want Chiyu Fu to die." "That's right. Ancestor, if you feel that my young lady is not satisfied or not enough, you can choose any of the direct descendants of Chiyu Fu. We just want to awaken the dragon blood in our bodies again." At this moment, the man from Chiyu Fu kept talking excitedly. He was so respectful to Long Dade that he almost knelt on the ground. Chapter 656. This scene caused the crowd to be stunned and speechless. What was going on? Wasn't this a little too sudden? We're not even ready yet. Even Long Dade was dumbfounded. He stared at the group of people from Chiyu Fu and carefully sensed that there was a trace of dragon blood in their bodies. "But—" Long Dade's old face turned slightly red and he suddenly became a little bashful. "You're usually quite arrogant. Why are you like this now?" Jiang Qin muttered. This was not Long Dade's personality. "Lord Ancestor, if you have something to say, just say it," the man from Chiyu Fu said. "According to the age of the dragon race, I'm still underage," Long Dade said weakly. "At my age, I'm not suitable for marriage, right?" When these words came out, the group of people was completely speechless. According to the age of the dragon race, Long Dade had just been born and was still considered a baby. At this age, how could he marry? Then, according to the age of the dragon race, when will you become an adult? The man from Chiyu Fu was also depressed. Looking at the dragon in front of him, he was not young. Why was he still underage? In about 30,000 years or so, I'll be an adult," Long Dade said. "What? 30,000 years?" In an instant, the group of people from Chiyu Fu exclaimed. The corners of their mouths twitched as if they could not take it any more. Who could guarantee that a family could last for 30,000 years? Moreover, even if Chiyu Fu was still around after 30,000 years, 30,000 years was enough to erase the dragon blood in the body of the direct descendants of Chiyu Fu. By then, what was the use of dragon blood? Even if they used the blood essence of Long Dade, the ancestral dragon, they would not be able to awaken the dragon blood in Chiyu Fu. "You caused this matter yourself. Think of a way to solve it yourself," Jiang Qin said softly. "Don't let outsiders gossip about my Chuanzuan sect." Long Dade's face turned ugly when he heard this. Of course, there was a way, but for him, the damage was too great. However, since Jiang Qin had spoken, Long Dade didn't dare to disobey. After thinking for a while, Long Dade's face darkened. He forced out a strand of origin blood essence and said, "This is a strand of origin blood essence. Let the strongest person in Shila House take it. He will definitely awaken the dragon bloodline. At that time, their descendants will also inherit the dragon bloodline. This isn't appropriate, right? Origin blood essence? Isn't that too much of a loss to you?" The man from Shila Fu shook his head, but his hands were very honest. As he spoke, he had already put away the origin blood essence. Then, he bowed deeply to Long Dade, and then to Jiang Qin. Then, without another word, he led the bridal escort team and ran away. No. From the looks of it, he's worried that this king will take back the origin blood essence. Long Dade was dumbfounded. This prince will never take back what he has given away. This was a question about the dragon's face. Lu Qingchen, how's the foundation of Qiyu Mansion now? At this moment, Jiangchen called out to Lu Qingchen. Now, everything in Qianzuan's sect was basically managed by Lu Qingchen. One of the best. Lu Qingchen said directly. Apart from my Qianzuan sect, Qi Lefu should be one of the strongest families in the world today. Oh, Jiangchen said softly, patted Lu Qingchen's shoulder, and said, You know what to do, right? I know. Lu Qingchen nodded. How could he not understand Jiangchen's meaning? Lu Qingchen knew very well that Jiangchen and the others were about to leave. It was impossible for them to stay on the godless continent forever. Then, after they left, Qianzuan's sect's strength would definitely be greatly reduced. At that time, someone must support Qianzuan's sect? And now, it seemed that Qi Lefu was the best choice. Of course, it was not to curry favor with Qi Lefu, but to subdue them. However, if Qi Lefu was tactful, they might take the initiative to come and seek refuge in a few days. If not, then sorry, for Qianzuan's sect's long-term consideration, Jiangchen did not mind taking action directly. After all, the world was so cruel. Sometimes, if one did not think for himself, he would be the one to get hurt. 3,000 years ago, after Jiangchen ascended, Qianzuan's sect declined and became a mess. 3,000 years later, Jiangchen returned and made a strong decision to quell the chaos of the Holy Clan and bring Qianzuan's sect back to glory. And Jiangchen would never let that tragic history happen again. Get ready, it's almost time to go, Jiangchen said softly, and then came to the main hall with Nianchanga, Mu Yud, and the others. Are you really going to Eternal City? Nianchanga said in a deep voice. That place is very complicated. It is indeed complicated. With your current cultivation, I'm afraid. Mu Yud frowned, seemingly a little worried. This was because Eternal City was very special and was not affected by the laws of heaven and earth. In the Eternal City, there were deities overseeing the city, heavenly deities lying cross-legged, and even ancient divine kings sleeping there. It was a very special place. An ordinary true god could only be a small leader in Eternal City, or even a lackey, or even cannon fodder. Jiangchen was going there this time to take back that cultivation technique. When the time came, there would definitely be some trouble. And once the trouble came, with Jiangchen's cultivation, it would be difficult for him to deal with it. That was originally something that belonged to me, Jiangchen said softly. I left that cultivation technique in Eternal City, and now I'm going to take it back. Can I do it? So much time has passed, that cultivation technique should be in someone else's hands now, Mu Yud said in a deep voice. Once that supreme cultivation technique is in someone else's hands, how can it be returned so easily? Moreover, in this world, strength speaks. Although you are invincible in the godless continent, in Eternal City. At this point, Mu Yud did not continue. He knew that Jiangchen should be able to understand. Suddenly, Jiangchen and the other two's expressions froze. They felt that there was a terrifying force gathering in the sky. The boundary wall was shaking, as if something was coming down from the ninth heaven. After a few breaths, Jiangchen looked at Mu Yud and Nianchanga and said with a bitter smile, Do you think I cannot go to Eternal City? I'm afraid you have to go even if you don't want to. Mu Yud sighed. At this moment, they all sensed that there was a master god in the ninth heaven using a divine ability to send a true god down. At this time, what was the purpose of sending a true god to the godless continent at such a great cost? The true god of the divine clan was already dead, and there was no danger on the godless continent. So why did this true god come down to the godless continent? They're here to kill me. They don't want me to ascend, Jiangchen said. If I ascend to the ninth heaven divine world in a normal way, I'm afraid that as soon as I enter the ninth heaven divine world, I'll be killed by my former enemies, and I won't have any room to resist, Jiangchen said. According to a wisp of memory from when I was the profound sky supreme being, there is a passage in Eternal City that can enter the ninth heaven divine world without being detected by others. Chapter 657. The top priority is, you deal with him first. Nyen Changa pointed to the top of his head, his expression grave as he said, "Coming!" When his voice fell, Jiangchen had already disappeared from the great hall. Several breaths later, above the white clouds, in that void, Jiangchen stood upright. Above his head, above the endless firmament, there was something similar to a transparent membrane. That thing was the realm wall. The realm wall separated the godless continent and the 9 firmament's divine world. Between the two, there was a primal chaos, law and order. Under normal circumstances, to pass through the realm wall, one had to ascend through the great Tao of divine light. And for the people of the upper realm, if they wanted to enter the godless continent, they had to open up a passageway in the primal chaos, law and order. However, the price was very high. Since ancient times, very few people would do so. But now, the realm wall was shaking. The primal chaos dispersed, the law and order collapsed, and a passageway was forming. Looking carefully, at the back of the passageway, there was a man flickering with divine light all over. He was walking towards the godless continent. "Long time no see, Divine King Tianchen." Several breaths later, a voice with sarcasm, mockery sounded. Jiangchen did not speak, just stood there quietly. 3 wisps of primal chaos aura lingered on his body, and an inextinguishable fire spread out behind him like a wing. The dignified Divine King Tianchen has now fallen to such a state. What a joke! That man had not yet descended to the godless continent, and was constantly mocking. However, Jiangchen still did not speak. "Back then, how glorious were you in the 9 firmament's divine world! The gods in the heavens were led by you, and 36 master gods cowed out at your feet," the man said. "But now, what do you count for?" When Jiangchen heard that, he still did not speak, still standing quietly. "Hey, your temper is not small. Ignoring me?" The man raised his eyebrows, the divine light on his body suddenly skyrocketed, like a brilliant sun. Until now, Jiangchen frowned slightly and said softly, "I've been recalling. I don't seem to know you." "You?" The man glared, but soon felt relieved. Of course, Jiangchen didn't know him, because he had become a god only recently. Back then, when Jiangchen was at his peak, he was only a small cultivator. "Back then I admired your grace, but now, you're like an ant in my eyes," the man said coldly. "Let me ask you a question," Jiangchen said. What is your cultivation?" "True God. The 9 heavens divine world's true God list is rank 3600. The man immediately became arrogant. One had to know that not all the creatures in the 9th heaven were gods. It was just that cultivating in the divine world of the 9 heavens made it easier to become a god. However, in the 9th heaven divine world, there were indeed many gods. Just like the ordinary cultivators on the godless continent, the true god was simply rotten on the streets. And among the many real gods, to be able to rank 3600 was already considered an outstanding figure among the real gods. 3600? However, Jiangchen was flabbergasted and even more surprised. 3600? This ranking, how could he have the nerve to say it out loud? Thinking back, when Jiangchen had just ascended, as a true god, his ranking had reached 137. That was the ranking of strength when he had just ascended. Now, a native of the 9th heaven divine world, rank 3600, was actually so arrogant and proud? "Big brother, you are not mistaken, right?" "Oh, yes," Jiangchen whispered and suddenly came to a realization. If the gods of the 9th heaven divine world wanted to enter the godless continent, they would have to pay a great price. Moreover, the higher the cultivation, the greater the price. In this way, the gods who came down this time, naturally, their cultivation would not be very high. After all, in the eyes of Jiangchen's old opponents, the current Jiangchen's strength was not very strong. Any capable true god sent here would be able to kill Jiangchen. Of course, this was what they thought. But they did not know that Jiangchen's current combat strength was extraordinary. "Hurry up, I'm waiting for you here," Jiangchen curled his lips. A 3,600 real god dares to come down and kill me. You! Very arrogant! The man was furious, and his face was cold. Hurry up, which main god opened this passage for you? Look at how slow you are, so annoying! Jiangchen was a little impatient and urged. Hurry up after killing you, I still have things to do, I don't have time to chat with you here. I'll kill you now! The man was furious, his footsteps quickened, and the divine light on his body shone brightly. Finally, after more than 10 breaths, he stepped out of the passage, passed through the boundary wall, and descended on the godless continent. I'll let you know the power of the gods! The man roared. When he was talking to Jiangchen previously, he felt deeply insulted. However, without waiting for him to make a move, he saw a fist light turn into a millstone, with raging flames and traces of chaotic qi entwined around it. Under the punch, everything seemed to quiet down, only the fist light illuminating all directions. The man was stunned on the spot. He wanted to resist, but found that his body did not listen to him. He had been intimidated. Could this be the combat strength of the former Divine King? Until the last moment, the man did not resist. Just like that, he was drowned by the fist light, and then died. How boring! Jiangchen pursed his lips and looked at the passage at the boundary wall. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said mockingly, Is my name Tianchen not good enough? Or are your standards too high? Sending this kind of trash over, are you courting death? Tianchen! If you dare to ascend, we'll kill you immediately! Behind the boundary wall, a main god roared angrily. Jiangchen heard this, smiled slightly, and said, Oh, so it's martial god. Humph! Martial god snorted coldly, stopped his divine ability, and the boundary wall slowly closed. Jiangchen chuckled, then returned to the main hall. It's done! Nian Chang'e was stunned. This was too fast. Killed with one punch. Jiangchen smiled and said, A true god rank 3,600 wants to kill me? This is a bit too much. They should at least send someone ranked in the top 100, right? Nian Chang'e muttered. In this day and age, have the brains of the main gods been squeezed by the door? Or have they forgotten your combat strength? If they really send someone in the top 100, I'm afraid I can't handle it. Jiangchen's face darkened, and said, Then you'll have to collect my corpse. No, I think they should at least send someone in the top 50. Mu Yud was very cunning, and he teased. Otherwise, it'll be a waste of the 3 strands of chaotic energy in your body. Scram! Jiangchen glared at him. Jiangchen didn't know what was going on. Ever since Mu Yud had told Jiangchen about the chaotic aura, Jiangchen had been repulsed by it. Sometimes, Jiangchen even thought of sealing the chaotic energy in his body. But he could not do it. Okay, let's wait for Qi Fu. After the matter there is settled, we'll leave for Eternal City, Jiangchen said. Chapter 658. Opening the boundary wall between the 2 realms required a huge price. Even the Master Gods did not dare to attempt it lightly. Since then, the 9 heavens divine world did not send any gods down. Jiangchen's days were also considered leisurely. It was just that Jiangchen's cultivation had already reached the land god realm, which was the true god realm. In this way, Jiangchen could not continue to cultivate in the godless continent. After all, heaven and earth were different. Due to the environment, if Jiangchen wanted to continue cultivating, then he had to go to the 9 heavens divine world. Only by absorbing the divine power and divine Tao power of the 9 heavens divine world could Jiangchen's cultivation increase again. And during this period of time, Jiangchen did nothing. Every day, he accompanied Nian Chang'e and the rest to chat and talk nonsense. At the same time, he also greeted the 3 great virtues. These 3 fellows did not cultivate properly all day long and caused trouble everywhere. Especially now that Yuanzuan's sect had unified the godless continent, these 3 people became more and more arrogant. Almost every 3 to 5 days, they would go out and cause trouble, and then run back to let Jiangchen clean up their mess. However, there was one thing that made Jiangchen very envious. It was because these 3 fellows were born different. They were special creatures raised by heaven and earth. They did not need to cultivate seriously, and their cultivation also rose slowly. Other people cultivated bitterly for 1,000 years before they had some achievements. And these 3 great virtues, in the midst of fooling around, their cultivation also rose rapidly. Especially Long Dade, this fellow was not only lazy, but also arrogant. But his cultivation also grew the fastest. After all, he was a primitive ancestral dragon and had a natural advantage. According to Long Dade, what was cultivation? I will sleep for thousands of years. When I wake up, I might be a divine king cultivation. Long Dade! Your wife's family is here to see you! On this day, Huang Dade shouted at the top of his voice spreading throughout the entire Qianzuan sect. That's your wife! Your family! Your whole family! Long Dade's face was black. Ever since the last time, everyone in the godless continent knew. Sometimes, there would even be people who joked, calling Long Dade Qi Yufu's eldest son-in-law. I am the ancestor true dragon. How can I be a match for a mortal? This is an insult to me, Long Dade said seriously. However, everyone could tell that Long Dade cared a lot about Qi Yuefu. For some reason, Long Dade would go to the Qila mansion every now and then and give them a drop of origin blood essence. This made everyone in Qi Yufu very excited and grateful. This was because, in such a short period of time, 3 people in the Qi Yufu had awakened the dragon blood in their bodies and became the rare profession of dragon blood warrior. The current Qi Yuefu wasn't bragging at all. Apart from the Qianzuan sect, Qi Yuefu was the strongest. In fact, there was even a dragon blood warrior who had broken through to the demigod realm. If Jiangchen and the others ascended and left at this moment, then this godless continent would fall into the hands of Qi Yuefu. Because of this, Jiangchen did not leave. He was waiting for the people from Qi Yufu to arrive. He wanted to see what Qi Yuefu's intentions were, and what their attitude towards the Qianzuan sect was. I'm the chief of Qi Yuefu, Shangguan Tuesday. At this moment, a middle-aged man stood outside the mountain gate and bowed. He was bowing deeply. Jiangchen was a little surprised that he had shown such a humble attitude before joining the Qianzuan sect. He knows how to conduct himself, Jiangchen said softly. He sat in the main hall and shouted, Come in. Thank you, sect leader Qianzuan, Shangguan said. Then, he tidied up his clothes and walked into the main hall of Qianzuan sect. Qi Yuefu's foundation is getting deeper and stronger. As the chief of Qi Yuefu, why do you have to be so polite when you come to the Qianzuan sect? Jiangchen asked with a half-smile. Shangguan couldn't help but tremble when he heard this. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and hurriedly said, The Qianzuan sect is now the leader of the world. Although I'm the chief of Qi Yuefu, I still have to be respectful towards the godless continent. Oh? Be respectful? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and pointed at himself. Then he looked towards Nianchanga and Mu Yud, who were next to him. Then he looked towards Shangguan and asked, It's because of the 3 of us that the Qianzuan sect was able to unify the godless continent, and make all the sects submit to us. But if the 3 of us ascend and leave one day, can the Qianzuan sect still continue to unify the godless continent? Will it be the same as 3,000 years ago? Once I ascend, the Qianzuan sect will be kicked down by others? Hearing this, more and more cold sweat appeared on Shangguan forehead. He knew better than anyone that Qi Yuefu was becoming more and more powerful. Naturally, it was a threat to the Qianzuan sect. The reason why he came this time was that he had no choice. He knew very well that Qi Yuefu had to make a decision and give the Qianzuan sect an explanation, or even a guarantee. Otherwise, Jiangchen wouldn't leave the godless continent. Even if he left, Qi Yuefu would definitely be destroyed. How's Long Dade's origin blood essence? All of a sudden, Jiangchen changed the topic. He started to care about Long Dade. Thank you very much, Ancestor True Dragon. There are already 3 people in Chiyu Fu who have awakened the dragon bloodline. Thanks to the blessing of the dragon bloodline, my cultivation has broken through to the demigod realm, Shangguan Tu said gratefully. Jiang Chen's divine sense had been shrouding Shangguan Tu's. As long as he lied, Jiang Chen could detect it. When Shangguan Tu said this, he was indeed full of gratitude and excitement. Okay, I won't talk nonsense with you. After probing for a while, Jiang Chen waved his hand and said bluntly, We're leaving soon. After we leave, what is Chiyuefu going to do? As soon as these words came out, Shangguan Tu's heart trembled. He knew that this was the real deal. If this question was not answered properly, Chiyuefu would be destroyed today. There is only one overlord in the world. Chiyuefu can't be that overlord, Shangguan Tu said. The overlord can also be replaced. Jiang Chen stared at Shangguan Tu and said, Chiyuefu is so powerful now. Don't you want to be the overlord of the godless continent? Isn't it good to create a piece of glory, to be remembered in the ancient books of the world, and to be admired by future generations? Jiang Chen asked. This is indeed very good. Shangguan Tu didn't dare to lie and said with a wry smile, But I understand that there are some things that can't be done. Oh? Why can't you do it? Jiang Chen said jokingly. If the 3 of them leave, Qianzuan's sex foundation and strength naturally can't compete with my Chiyuefu. But what should I do after that? Destroy Qianzuan's sect and then dominate the godless continent? Shangguan Tu said with a wry smile. But what about after that? In the future, when my people ascend to the 9 heavens divine world, I'm afraid that one of them will be destroyed. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.